fate is before you. Choose wisely.
Highs with the lows, that's like these days. World chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. The highs with the lows, that's like these days. World chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. Any day could've been dead. High school price on my head. Paranoid lying in my bed. Pray to God they don't turn my shirt cherry. I was lost, didn't know me. Introduced myself to codeine. 6 months was a dope fiend. Philly didn't even know things. There was a low me. Swear to God it would've owed me. Everything you ever told me. Everything you ever showed me. I forgot it. Caused me drama. I used to stay on one. Now I changed on them. The highs with the lows. That's life these days. Bro chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. Hit the highs with the lows. That's life these days. Bro chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. I just saw Jizzy got a plane. Guess that's what he meant when he said nothing was the same. Lately I've been grounded, energizing off the pain. Some things gon' change, I'm just soaking up the game. Through the mud, out the rain like I remember all those same nights. Now I'm on top, no stage fright. Now I'm on go, no brake lights. Hit the pedal, hit the engine roar. No fear like a matador. Breaking trends and I'm making more. Going up, climbing ladders more. I can't be stopped. Now I do what I want. Real, no front. All the way to the top. Highs with the lows. That's like these days. World chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. The highs with the lows. That's like these days. World chained up, he on lockdown. Phone call 3 ways. I just pray that he find God now. It's no replay. On my way up to the top now. That's on me, ayy. Keep God first. I see evil, when I converse. Not today, say. This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Go. Set it out. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it out. You living boring, I'm gonna set it out. Shooting them scoring, I'm gonna set it out. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it out. Son of God, no, I am not son of man. Blessings keep falling, the fingers keep coming in. I got you, but just know I'm texting like Uncle Sam. Left to the bank, you know that I'm coming in. We don't do it for the bands though, we don't do it for the clout. Legacy on the line, so I'm moving in and out. Seen good ones turn top dog, greedy ones get knocked off. I keep looking at the bench like I could never not ball. Coach keep me in the game, Curry deadly with the range. I keep looking in the mirror like, who is he? I'm insane. Who am I? He insane. Guess I ain't the one to blame. What's done is done, won't change. Time to live up to my name. Real will be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I'm made for a while. No sleeping, no, I won't fall. No sleeping, no, I want it all. I keep God first. I see evil, when I converse. Not today, say. This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Go. Set it out. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it out. You living boring, I'm gonna set it out. Shoot when I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it out. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it out. Told my baby, meet me at the bank. Told my mama, I'ma break the trend. Locked in, I'ma change the weight. Working for them, baby's kids. Hard times couldn't make the rent. Working hard, couldn't save a cent. Lonely nights, just me and God. Swear to him, always made the ends. Grab a paper, see the news. Hate coming by the tools. Walk a mile in my shoes. Something you can never do. Got my back against the wall. Bet I always pull through. Who are you, who are you? Who are you, who are you? Sending shots tight, block 'em. Superman with the moves. Rock 'em, sock 'em, drop, pop 'em. Play to win, never lose. Run it up, I top 'em. Play full belly too. I hip hop or pop 'em. Anything I could do. The real won't be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I made for a while. No sleeping while I won't fall. No sleeping while I won't it all. I keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse. Not today, say. This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Go, 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 go. Set it out. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it out. You living boring, I'm gonna set it out. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it out. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it out. I hit record a drop, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always boarding. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring, now you can't afford it. Champagne Perrier, vintage friends on my face. Looking like I'm from the deep, these no Cartiers. Pockets deep, 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 bro. I can make it in my seat, bro. Do you, I'm doing me, bro. Making noise, use a peep, bro. Whoa, I press the button and the doors go off like that money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like. Whoa, 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 whoa. Neighborhood on the scene, neighborhood on the strip. Neighborhood be the name, neighborhood no crib. Neighborhood that's me, neighborhood that's Nick. Neighborhood do the dance, neighborhood do the dip. Okay, thought I'd never make it like no way. I'm the real deal, no role play. My days off, that's no days. No, I hustle hard, young rose. E be the shooter, that's cold case. Those on the deals, that's brose. Got no pay, yo, no say. Okay, this the news, tell them read it. Been the one since the fetus. Don't sleep on me, Tempur-Pedic. That's a no, no, no. Spending dope for no reason. Got a ball head, Mr. Cleaner. Heard the big bags overseas, then we gon' go, go, go. Whoa, I press the button and the doors go off like. Whoa, that money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like. Whoa, 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 whoa. I press the button and the doors go off like. Whoa, that money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like. Whoa, 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 whoa.
On my own, no fixer. I'm gon' ball, no picker. That I ate doors, they live for. Talking on my back, go figure. Whole team eats from spitter. Never was the one to go flicker. No face, no case, no picture. Full plates, big steaks, my dinner. Flip that, Canal Street. Flip back. Last week, old money. This week, new racks. Never buy none more. If I can't afford to gift wrap, stunning in your foreign car. You keep riding rental tax. Ew. Heard you roll the other lean, we are not the same. Couple thousand in my pocket, this pocket chick. Rubber bands on my arm, this is not for play. I put 20 on the crib while you cop a chain. I know they hated or love it. You know I love when they hate it. Last year was living basic. Nah. Haters on the other side. 3 up, read between the lines. Know I got some maintenance with me. Made it through some evil times. Late night on some demon time. Pour the Sprite, I need a lot. I can't lock it, sweet line. Freak time. rhinestone. You can assume with your chains on. I can see none with the lights off. Cap, you been the main one. Coolin' when I got my mains on. Show money.
What we are about to get into it, and this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a free-for-all as we talk about the dynamics of why, or the presumption, that men of ADOS descent have a level of disdain for our women. We're going to have a powerful and a very cogent conversation where we're going to allow the panelists to come up and share and have a cogent conversation. It's going to be in respect. And we're going to talk about the thinking errors or the presumption if black men actually hate women of ADOS descent. So sit back, relax, get your pen and paper ready. Let's do it. Bringing it to you live once again from the greatest state in the Union, the Tar Heel State, where the topography is serene, pristine, and verdant green, where every day is Father's Day, and where manhood is part of hills and valleys, victories and failures, and whereas men, we don't agree on all things or ideologies, but tonight we come together as allies of a common cause only to dissipate once the crisis is over. Now listen, I'm about to drop some fire for your mind. But before I drop that fire, let's explore why we are doing the Manhood Chronicles. All right, guys, I don't know if you guys heard that. Might be having some technical issues. If you guys heard that intro, please hit 1. If you guys heard the intro, please hit 1. And looking forward to this conversation, guys, because this conversation is going to be critical to the functioning of how black men not only see themselves, but the misnomers that continue to exist as it relates to black men and black women of ADOS descent here in America. Many times, guys, you'll hear the mental permutations that, black men hate black women. But I'm going to challenge you guys on today. And we're going to find out and more or less do the research and more or less challenge the negative thought processes on the presumption if our men actually hate the women that they are dealing with. And so I'm going to go ahead and proclaim it unequivocal that black men do not hate women of ADOS descent, no more than white men hate white women of European American descent. But I'm going to go on the limb and say that men of ADOS descent don't like some of the behaviors of Western modern women. And because of that, they're looking for visceral change. I told you guys that William Glasser was a contemporary of something called choice theory. And choice theory is actually tied into what my man from the Ingram experience talked about, something called relationship capitalism. Relationship capitalism basically says that how can I get the best bang for my buck? How can I get the best outcomes that are going to be sustainable for me long term as a man? That's relationship capitalism. And so what many guys are saying is that they're not getting the best bang for their buck. They're not getting the outcomes that they want as it relates to relationships. And because of that, Glasser's theory of choice or choice theory ties into what's called group therapy, or the 8 elements of group therapy. Those 8 elements, and 5 of those are group cohesiveness. When you see men come together in these spaces, that's part of the group dynamic or the group cohesiveness, where men are actually coming together to form opinions on what's going on. Another process is called universality, or the universality of brotherhood, or the universality of pain. The universality of brotherhood of pain is when men come together to share their stories as it relates to distress, as it relates to their struggles, as it relates to the things that they've been through as men. Another step is called the installation of hope. That's tied to group therapy or group principles because men are more or less trying to find hope in the chaos that's currently pursuing here in America. Men come together and share information based on what they've gathered. And also they have what's called a catharsis where men are actually emoting and more or less sharing the pains that they've been through in relationships as it relates to the elements that are blocking them from having choice. Another element of group therapy is something called corrective recapitulation. That basically means that men go back in their past to correct what they've messed up only to get the better outcomes as they move forward because Glasser said that it was all based on choices, choice theory. So we're going to have a powerful conversation. We're going to have a panel of brothers. I want at least 10 to cam up. And we're going to talk about the misnomer or the presumption, and we're going to ask ourselves the question, do men of ADOS descent hate their women, or do they hate the behaviors associated with many modern women? Because as I said before earlier, while our focus is on women of ADOS descent, there is a lot of great consternation with men of European descent as well about the behaviors and the choices of the women that they're dealing with here in Western America, to the point that men are beginning to explore their options and they're beginning to determine what outcomes are better or what elements can give me the best bang for my buck. So once again, this is going to be a live call-in. I'm going to drop the link at some point. I need you guys to share the content, get the likes up, share this content with men that think like you. To the ladies that are listening, share this content with women that think like you. Everybody don't believe in the empowerment of men. Because as I said before earlier, if you empower the man, then you're going to empower the woman indirectly. When you empower the man from a masculine perspective, he's going to be at his best because he's going to be motivated to provide, protect, love, defend, and give his best for his woman. But I want to ask the ladies that are listening, what are you willing to give back unto him? Because this is a transactional relationship. And, just like, Teddy Pendergrass said it better than me. He said, it's so good to love somebody and to somebody to love you back. Teddy Pendergrass was saying that back in the 70s. And if Teddy Pendergrass was saying that back in the 70s, how much more relevant is that today? Because see, watch this, guys. Needs drive behaviors. When you see these men congregating, it's the need to be heard. When you see these men coming together, it's the need because they feel like they're not being heard and they're not getting their needs met. That was all part of Glasser's psychoanalytic theory as it relates to needs. Needs drive behaviors. But watch this. Some say we need therapy. But when you start looking at the tenets of therapy as it relates to male empowerment, then all of a sudden it's a problem. Because see, we want therapy that benefits the masses. Not therapy that more or less is the objective truth, that more or less point the mirror back at the man for him to get better, but also it points the mirror back at the woman for her to get better as well. But we live in a very sensitive culture when that anytime men begin to put the mirror on the women that they're dealing with, some, not all, a percentage of the women have a condition called the medusa effect. And the medusa effect is due to the fact that many lack the power and the will to look within themselves to do the necessary work to more or less uncover those negative issues that they are dealt with. Many are dealing with generational trauma from the past that they have not eradicated. Many don't want to eradicate it because they will rather stay in the cesspool of ignorance than to be in the continuum of change. And as Bishop Charles E. Williams said, y'all ain't gonna talk to me. So I need you guys to get the likes up because we're gonna have a panel. And to the panelists, when you come up, I want you guys to be respectful. No cursing because you're gonna affect the algorithm. I don't mind you being passionate, but we're gonna have a powerful conversation. This is a live call-in. To the women that are listening, I need you guys to share the content. Get the likes up. If you have not donated, donate to the channel because these shows, as I've told you several times, are extremely time-consuming. Well, many times, guys, we talk about the importance of solutions. Many times we talk about the importance of telling the truth. And what many men are beginning to see and notice in modern contemporary times, it's not so much the way you tell the truth. You can tell the truth harshly, or you can tell it in a very calm way, but many don't want the truth. The gospel say that in the latter times that they will not love the truth. And so when men begin to congregate and talk based on the elements of group therapy, right? Based on the elements of Glass's concept as it relates to choice, we say that we love the men that look like us, but are you willing to hear what he's really saying? I did a show with my dear friend Chantel Simone, shout out to her. One of the things I said in that show was this: you have to protect his six, which is his ego. If you want a man to protect you from a physical perspective, you have to protect his six, which is his ego. When you learn to protect his six, guess what he'll do for you? He will learn and love to protect you as it relates to the physicality, as I said earlier. So we're going to talk about it because, there's a lot of consternation going on. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of shaming. There's a lot of death based on cognitive dissonance, which basically says or posits. They deny the evidence when you present it. I'm going to present the evidence. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue do ad hominem attacks, meaning they attack the messenger instead of attacking the message. And they fight or flee due to the reality of what's being presented before them. Mental illness is running rampant not only in America, but is running rampant in our communities. Some of the women that you are dealing with, men, are dealing with mental illness. Women, some of the men that you are dealing with have been dealing with mental illness. And there's an ongoing war or presumed war between the sexes that's been permeating for the last 40 to 50 years based on radical liberal policies that black men didn't have any dealing with, or more or less didn't create. So we need to have the conversation, guys. We need to have the conversation. Because the essence of the conversation on today is based on the concept: do black men or men of ADOS descent detest their women? And if they do detest their women, has it led to a war of genders? And these conversations are very important, and we're going to talk about sustainable solutions for the long run. I've said before in the past, I don't see the evolution of the black community more or less proliferating in the next couple of years. I think it's going to take a few generations because we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to change overnight. But the question remains to the ones that are faithful, the remnant, the sisters that are part of the remnant, the brothers that are beginning to exercise their rights and their determination. Are you willing to look within and self-introspect? Are you willing to say, I'm going to get the best outcomes that are viable for helping me become the better version of myself? And that's why we're going to have this conversation. Because for too many years and for too long, many men were not heard. I told you one of the 5 components of Glass's choice theory is power. Power, fun, belonging, survival. And I forgot what the 5th one was, but it was 5 elements that was tied to Glass's choice theory. And so when men are not getting their needs met, they do 1, 2, or 3 things. They begin to act out when they're not getting their needs met. Some have a silent revolt when they're not getting their needs met. And then some become indifferent. I sat on the show with my man Aguapo in the past, and Aguapo, we were talking about it, that the opposite of hate is indifference. I'm going to say it again. The opposite of hate is indifference. And the question remains, are modern men becoming indifferent, regardless of their ethnic hue, regardless of the ethnic background or affiliation, but are modern men becoming indifferent? But because this conversation more or less circumnavigates around people or men of ADOS descent, are ADOS men becoming indifferent? Now watch this. Somebody asked a question. I'm going to address Red Pill, Eric the Red. He said, how can you be at war and claim SYSBM? Well, listen, that's a good question, Eric the Red. Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. And of course, I'm the kosher clinician. I got that fire for your mind.
For your mind.
But sometimes before there's smoke, there's fire. And the question remains is this: are you seeing the smoke of SYSBM, or are you seeing the fire? Are you seeing the smoke, or are you seeing the fire? Because men going their own way, or men choosing to exercise their options, there is a residual response that's associated with that. There's residuals. When you see a car taking off, it's going its own way, but guess what? You still see the fumes associated with that car. And like Bishop Charles E. Williams said, y'all ain't gonna talk to me. Now, we're gonna have a conversation. Drop the link, guys. Shout out to my man, that's my homie. That is my homie right there, Top Gun, the trigger man. That's my homie. Top Gun, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. He said that, guys, there's no other black man in this space on YouTube or working as a man like our brother. Let's continue to help him grow this platform. Each one on the team. Thank you, brother. P.S. Trolls will be kicked off. No doubt, brother. I appreciate it. I'm Top Gun. I really appreciate it because I don't think that some of our brothers understand what they have. Eventually, I'm going to membership, and eventually it will be a Patreon. In order to get the benefits and the perks of this channel, it'll only be for patrons and members. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, Top Gun. I appreciate the good sisters that are listening. I appreciate the good men that realize that I have your best interests. Because, guys, watch this. You're not going to find too many heteronormative therapists that see things from a traditional perspective that relates to the empowerment of our men. Because, see, watch this. Many men come to these spaces, guys, because they feel like they don't have anyone that's listening to them. They feel like that no one hears their perspective. They're at the crossroad where they're saying, do I move on with my life and focus on myself? Or do I try to find those uncovered gems? Because listen, there are some sisters in the crosshairs of this caustic system called America that are good women. They are part of what I call the remnant, or what I call uncovered gems. They're good women. They're good women that have been shamed into silence. They've been shamed into silence because they've been called pick-me's. They've been shamed into silence because they've been called mammies. And watch this. Big Mama was shamed into silence because a lot of women didn't like Big Mama because Big Mama had the heart of a servant, because she realized that if I serve my man and protect his six, guess what? He's going to protect my six. Fannie Lou Hamer talked about it. Fannie Lou Hamer was an example of a Big Mama because she knew the importance of protecting her man, because we were all in a struggle together. But right now, there's a war of attrition where many men are beginning to say, white and black, that what am I getting for the product that I'm getting in return? What am I getting for the product that I'm investing in? What am I getting compared to what my granddaddy got? What am I getting compared to what my great-grandfather got? Am I getting an icon of virtue, or am I getting an icon of entitlement? Has an entitlement mindset led many modern women to be perceived as something called an iconoclast? An iconoclast is something that's more or less deemed to be negative that people don't want to more or less deal with. So we got to ask ourselves the question, how is that impacting men, productivity, but also the current community as it relates to relationships? Because I'm convinced, guys, that many want what's called kumbaya therapy, to come back together, don't talk about it, and men just go and be quiet and just shut up. But a lot of men say, nah, we ain't going to do that. A lot of men are saying we're going to get what we want, whether it's in the process of saving myself, or whether it's in the process of me exercising my options or my alternatives or my choices to do what's best for me. Because many guys are saying that during this last election, many that said that they won't own the team of black men, black family, and the black community, they did what was best for them. They didn't do what was best for the community or the infrastructure. But now they're saying we need to come back together and sing Kumbaya. And what black men are saying is that, nah, we ain't going to do that. We're going to do what's best for us. We're going to do what's best as it relates to getting the outcomes that I feel that are necessary as it relates to the sustainability of the ego of a man. as it relates to the mental wellness of a man, as it relates to the sustainability of a man in the contextual framework of this caustic culture called America. So once again, guys, I need you to get the likes up because I'm about to drop some fire for your mind. I'm going to drop some fire for your mind.
Fire for your
I'll
mind.
go to the office.
The kosher clinician.
Because we've been hearing this, what I call overgeneralization about the needs associated with men of ADOS descent. And we need to have a more cogent and critical conversation. So once again, guys, if you have not shared the content, share the content. If you have not donated to the channel, donate to the channel like my man Top Gun. Thank you, Top Gun. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the 35 that are watching. There are people that watch this channel. You watch, but you haven't subscribed. Subscribe. Hit all notifications. Because we're going to have a psychic soul train based on the parameters of Wim Glasser, psychoanalytic theorist, but also based on the parameters of what's called group therapy. Because as I said before, whereas men, we may not agree on all things or ideologies, but we come together as allies of a common cause only to dissipate once the crisis is over. And there appears to be a crisis in heteronormative masculinity that's impacting relationship choices, community dynamics, but also the mental wellness of many men, to the point that many men are saying, I need a feminine oscillator, one that's genuine, one does not have any malice or forethought, one that has my best frame at heart. And because men are traditional by nature, and we've been conditioned to be traditional, we realize that some of these modern men are weak. Some of these, and no disrespect to the Zennials, no disrespect to them and the millennials, some of you guys just didn't have the proper training. But we know there are some millennials and Zennials that are odd and they don't have any life skills. They don't know how to really lead. We get that, but it's not your fault. And so that's why we're going to have the conversation. So guys, get the likes up. Let's get the likes up. I'm going to read through some of these comments. And because we need to have a conversation. Because until we have a conversation, we're not going to be able to understand the mental conditioning that's impacting us as a community. What the font said that, absolutely, we need to have an understanding of the programming, and if the ladies understand their faults, then we can sit down at the table and work together. Well, for some, that might be happening. That's true. And I need guys to understand that only a small percentage of men travel abroad. It's only a small percentage. Most men don't. Traveling to foreign countries is expensive, but here's a caveat. Many men are beginning to work on themselves and saying, you know what? I'm going to start stacking my money. I'm going to start stacking my chips. I'm going to start doing the shallow work too by doing therapy and seeing the kosher clinician for non-diagnostic consultations. I'm going to start demanding more because I paid a great price to become the man of valor that I am today. And I'm going to get with women that are more or less respective of me. Now watch this. If you're a simp in America, you'll be a simp overseas. If you lead with your wallet in America, you're going to lead with your wallet overseas. But watch this. Women from foreign countries tend to be more traditional. They have been trained to be more traditional like your great-great-grandmama was and your grandma. Your grandmama knew the power of being a pygmy. She didn't mind cooking Junebug a pie, and putting the pie on the outside so Junebug can smell it or drop it a handkerchief. Because she understood that there was a transactional relationship, and if she wanted a quality man, she had to give him something back in return. But see, now many come to the table, they don't expect anything but them. They say, I give you sex, whereas sex is mutual. And most men back then got virgins for their wives. They got women that have kids or kids by multiple men. And so many men are beginning to say, it's time for us to rise up from the morass. It's time for us to self-introspect and do what's best for us. The women that are willing to compete for the honor of being with a good man, because it is an honor to get the ring. It's an honor, ladies. The ring is not free because he is the prize catcher. That's what I'm teaching these young men. You are the prize catcher. But you got to set standards that are synonymous to you and your ego as a man. Because as I said before earlier, if you protect his 6, which is his ego, he's going to protect your 6, which is provision and protection. regardless if you make your own money, because we know that women, even though they make their own money, they still want men that are going to protect them. And as Bishop Charles E. Williams said, y'all ain't going to talk to me. Now watch this. We're about to drop the link, guys, and we're going to have a conversation because I want the men to come on and let's talk about it. This is going to be an open session, an open panel for men and women. And, we're going to have a conversation. I need somebody to help me moderate. Please moderate for me. And if you have not donated, donate to Cash App, $7 Smalls, as we have this cogent conversation. All right, so going to read through some of these comments. My man Richard Mack, shout out to my man Richard Mack. No doubt, brother, love the knowledge you are dropping. We will get our Zoom to Thailand collab soon. No doubt, guys, check out my homie Zoom to Thailand. Richard Mack is a good brother. He gave me permission to use his content. He's a good brother. And Richard Mack is exercising his options as well based on Wim Glasser. Shout out to Richard Mack from Zoom Thailand. I did a show using some of his content about men exploring their options. And as I said before, guys, it's not because our men don't want women here. Many of the men have given and dealt with sisters of ADOS descent. But they've come to the conclusion that when it comes down to dating and relationships, they're not getting the best outcomes they want long-term as it relates to sustainability of their soul and their mind. And men by nature are very simple, very simple. So shout out to my man Richard Mack, no doubt, brother. Much love and blessings, brother. Shout out from Reese from Philly. How you guys doing? And like I said, guys, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. I need you guys to share the content, though. I need you guys to get these likes up. I need you guys to share this content and get these likes up. All right? So before you guys pop in, I'm going to run a commercial talking about the importance of mental health because you know and I know that mental wellness is very important.
Are you a victim of brokenness and despair? A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man. Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways to the point it's led over into your social life and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.
All right, guys, so the link has been dropped. The link has been dropped. Let's have a conversation. Top Gun, send me your information. I got to get some more moderators, man. I can't do all this stuff by myself, man. I know Gail normally holds it down for me, but I know she's busy. And Tim, haven't seen him the last 2 days, guys, but I'm going to start assigning moderators because I cannot moderate and do the show at the same time. Shout out to my man James Turner. Much love and blessing, brother. Coach, I tend to wonder exactly what the ladies are being told about marriage. Are they being told that not to marry, or are they being told to prepare in case it does not work? No, your thoughts. Thank you, brother. Well, listen, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I heard one lady say, and we'll call her name, she said that marriages are not expected to last forever, but when men get married because it is an investment, they expect it to last forever because it's a great cost to more or less put yourself in a predicament where you can lose half of what you got. And see, this is not just a black man thing. This is an American issue. It's an American issue. And that's why we're having these conversations. So I got my man, What the Funk, on. How you doing, sir? What the Funk? How you doing, brother? What's going on?
How you doing?
All right. Hold tight.
No rush.
We got my man, What the Funk, on. But I want to have at least a panel of up to 10 if possible. 5 to 10. I want men to talk and to share. But let's have a conversation, brother. When you talk about the things that you're seeing festering here in America, I'm going to ask you the rhetorical question. Do men of ADOS descent hate their women?
No, but they do hate their behavior.
Right. I want you to elaborate on that.
Honestly, I think a lot of brothers want to love our sisters. Like, we really do. And it's not even, let's take it off black. I think modern men of America want to love women, but in reality, it's just some of the behaviors that they have innately with not knowing, and some of the behaviors that they have as a group are almost impossible to really deal with long term. Maybe their willingness to talk about their stress so much, about the willingness to talk about as soon as you come home about what's going on through their day. Some of the simple behaviors make it truly impossible for men to completely love our women when we honestly know that that's not what we want to be around. We're programmed to deal with stress from our women that innately we aren't really built to deal with. And then it kind of start to see other cultures who don't have that same type of stress or that same type of macro aggression, that passive aggressiveness. And that's what's kind of making men, once they've kind of gone through a divorce or gone through a breakup, or maybe even had their children turned against them, say, I'm not dealing with this. And now those men are teaching younger men, like, you guys don't know what you're signing up for. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. And I'm trying to save you a headache. So we want to love the women. We really, really do. Black community, white community, it doesn't really matter. We want to love women, but it's just the behaviors that they've kind of been programmed with society, with other women in their lives, and the whole grand spider web of it all almost makes it impossible.
No, I totally agree. I want to ask you a question. What does power mean to you? When you think about power as being the man of ADOS descent, I know you lived in America at one point, but you're in Germany now. What does power mean to you as a man? What does power mean to you?
Power means having the ability to change someone's life, having the ability to put someone in a position that completely changes their life trajectory, and having the nuances to not hold it over their head. Power to be able to positively make somebody's life innately better. That is power to me.
Do you believe on a holistic basis that men of ADOS descent have power to more or less demand what they want as it relates to relationships? Do you believe they have more? Do you believe they have power, or they really don't know how to exercise that power as it relates to relationships? What's your take?
Absolutely not. I believe that most men of ADOS descent don't even realize how much the government is really the man in their is the man or the husband in the woman's life, not them. We are so innately replaceable, and I don't think that many men realize how replaceable they are until they've been replaced. They say it's a man's world until you've had your first divorce.
Right.
It's your world until you've given up that power that you had before you've had children. You have power then, but once you have children in the American system, and once you get married, your power is completely taken away and given to the court system and the powers that be.
I believe that there, when you look at it from a contextual framework of what the funk, I believe that there is also what's called things at the macro level that more or less impede on the power of men. But also, I believe that men have more power than they realize. Now, you're correct as it relates to trying to formulate a stronger and more cohesive relationship. It does render them to a level of powerlessness, because once they become engaged in that relationship, then they can lose everything that they have. But to the single man like yourself, you actually have more power. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You were in Germany, correct?
Yes.
Why did you leave Germany? Why did you go to Germany? Did you go looking for love? Did you go because you're in the military?
No. My uncle was actually military all his life. He was like the main person that was kind of raising me. And he was always telling me how he had wished that he had started a life in Germany. He had baby mama drama as well. He was a green-eyed, light-skinned, playboy. And I met a woman when I just turned 30, when I was really kind of thinking about trying to slow down and kind of stop traveling and bartending all the places that I did. And I had a woman who gave me the option and flew me out here. And I knew from that standpoint, even before I really fell in love with her, I knew that having children in this system was innately better. Even if I had a breakup with her, I knew that I would be treated much fairly and I would have much more father rights than I would in America. So from a practicality standpoint, I analyzed it. It was like, it makes more sense for me to really pursue starting a family over here rather than doing it in America. And I just remember what my uncle always said is like, it was his dream. So that's what I did. I came here, made 2 children, and my 2 children look exactly like my uncle and my mother. So I know that I made the right decision.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. As you begin to see this ongoing struggle, this ongoing war of factions here in this culture called America, how have your life been changed or elevated since you decided to live abroad versus living here when you were in America? How has your life been elevated from that perspective?
Oh, man. Innately better. It's kind of like I did the reverse waiting to excel. Like I had always been team sister all my life, even though I traveled the world. I was always kind of like always on in Brazil and Japan. I was still always dating sisters. And though this is like the very first white woman I've ever dealt with, when I got here, some of the things that she showed me with this culture here, I was able to kind of put some of my chaos and my art into a better situation and kind of organize it better. And then I put me in a position where I'm pretty much retired now because of some of the gems and some of the codes and some of the things that I learned from her and her culture. I was able to kind of put it into a better situation. And now here I am at 40 and retired. So it definitely put me in a better situation. And it's like, after I broke up with her, it's like, now I'm trying to find a sister again. After she made me better, it kind of turned me into not into the man that I needed to be, but kind of just showed me how I can use my gifts in a better way and really make great money from it.
No doubt, no doubt. Listen, guys, I want to have a conversation. I want some of the women to pop in if you can. I know some guys are at work, but I need to have at least 5 to 10 people on panel, mixed panel, preferably, of men and women. But if the women can't pop on, I need some more men to pop on because we're going to have a powerful discussion as it relates to, do black men hate women of ADOS descent? Now, what the funk I said earlier, that Glasses said that needs drive behaviors. How you doing? No excuse. How you doing, brother? How you doing, sir? Can you hear me? How you doing, sir? Can you hear me? No excuse. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No excuse.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. There you go, brother. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, brothers?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So we're having this poignant conversation. No excuse. I saw you on when we were doing the show with Aaron Ferris of Black Man Travels. Shout out to him. I was with Aaron Ferris when I was in Brazil about a month or 2 ago. And, you know, looking at things from an anthropological perspective, but also from a cultural perspective, I want to ask you the question. I want to pose the question. Do men of ADOS descent hate black women, in your opinion?
You said a men of ADOS descent what?
Right. Do men of ADOS descent hate their women?
The vast majority, no. The vast majority, no. The vast majority still marry at 80% rate. There is a minority group, you know, which we're starting to have louder voices now that have some disdain, but to hate, no, because most of the brothers the 20% that still date out or travel internationally, they still see black women. So as far as ADOS women is concerned, I would say no, overall no, but it is a minority.
Right. Because see, here's what I call the thinking errors of catastrophizing. You know, one of the elements that many men are actually using is travel abroad. You know, you got men like yourself. You got Richie Mack. He's in Thailand. I'm going to do some collaborate with him soon. You got Aaron Ferris. You know, he's abroad. A lot of brothers are going abroad. I think your fiance is foreign. Am I right or wrong?
Yep, correct.
Your girlfriend or fiance is foreign, right? And so
Right.
Glasser talked about needs drive behaviors. And see, I've told some of our women that men are the prize catchers. We determine what we want in the woman. But what were some of the challenges, no excuse, that you went through as a man of ADOS descent when you were looking for a woman that could protect your 6, which is your ego? What were some of the struggles that you were dealing with, brother?
In the U.S. or dating abroad?
In the U.S.
It was a power struggle. You know, when I tried to encapsulate all the relationships At the end of the day, it was a power struggle. And I think that's where we're at. And I think the topic of this conversation encapsulates the power struggle, the war, so to speak. And so there shouldn't be a power struggle when the man should be naturally considered the hierarchy. But since the man isn't considered a hierarchy, to a lot of women, there's a power struggle, and I experienced that a lot. Even women um, that were quote unquote good women, there was always a circumstance or situation where you would bump heads, and where typically the man would get the last say. In a lot of those situations, I found it wasn't the case.
Excellent, excellent. I want you to talk about your newfound love abroad. I want you to talk about how your newfound love has more or less been a benefactor to you mentally, socially, spiritually, and also physically. When you think about the young lady that you are dating now, how's she been an added element to your salubrity as it relates to mind, body, spirit, soul, and all? What would you say?
Well, dealing with her, I will preface and say that a lot of she's Colombian. A lot of the Colombians are women. They did have Western tendencies, whether talking back a certain way, getting an attitude, passive aggressiveness. But what keeps her in check is the fact that the power lies with me. There's no external government cultural dynamic where the power can shift. Like I'm in control of the situation. When we get married, have kids, I'm able to control the narrative, and it keeps her in her natural feminine state. So over time, the battles that we've had, because we've had clashes, I've won every battle.
Okay,
and so
right.
and so now she is, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but she is broken she has been broken to respect me as a man, and to see that, and she has been broken to respect me as a man, because we went through that phase, and my whether it's my financial status, my American status versus her not being an American, just all the socioeconomic dynamics keeps her in check. Now I could ruin that by bringing her to the U.S. and possibly her conforming and things like that, but that's not a situation I'm going to introduce.
Right.
So what my last point is, what keeps her in check is not necessarily her nature, it's the social economic structures around her.
Okay, explain that, elaborate on that.
So all women are those that travel long enough realize most women are the same no matter where you go.
Where you go, at the core, right.
Right. So the only difference between women is the laws that govern them. That's the main difference. That's the only issue I have with American women, is not necessarily the laws. The laws do create the culture, but it's the laws that govern the women. That's the major difference in any country, whether it's the Middle East, Latin America, things of that nature. So us as black men, we are retreating to countries, places where the laws that govern the society are either more 50-50 or more to our traditional way of living. So that's
Well, you're correct. I think at a woman's hard drive, and I've said it before in the past, most women are universally the same. They want love, protection, security, maintenance. If you're looking from the spiritual world, the gospel even said that she will have a desire for her husband, but he will have rulership over her, because there's a war that's been going on since the fall of man. That's what some theologians teach. They call it original sin. But you're correct. But here's the difference as it relates to nature and nurture. In the clinical world, we talk about nature and nurture. The environment, you're correct, determines how she responds to you as a man. Also, I think women abroad have been conditioned to serve and to respect their men because of a patriarchy. What's your take on that?
correct. No, I definitely agree. The patriarchy definitely lays the groundwork. And we're currently in a matriarch society in the United States, but the patriarch lays the groundwork. That creates the culture. You know, so I talk about this a lot. Laws create culture. Our American laws, we could go down a list of laws. Our culture, whether what we accept now, whether it's LGBT, whether it's the cancel culture, the laws is what cultivated that.
Right.
We are a separate church from state. We are a separate church from state country, and so I asked this question, like, should we be more like Middle Eastern countries where they're governed by their religious sector, and they do have order.
Right.
You
A
know,
theocracy.
now some people say, well, the Muslim countries, they may have order, but they're just as messed up as U.S. as far as their economy and things like that. So there's different arguments, but overall, the culture for the most part comes from laws and or religion. The patriarch system is based on what's been going on before America was created. A lot of people have said this on different platforms, that the United States is only how many years old? The United States, 400 years old.
A little over 200, about 250 maybe. It's a young country, very young.
The young country. So we're trying to reinvent the wheel when where most of eternity, has been run by men, and they want to say now men haven't been doing it correctly. Now it's the woman's turn, but it's going in complete destruction. But I wanted to address. I want to agree with a point you made about men having power, and I agree with you because men have power because I brought this up yesterday. Black women have admittedly and shown that they will not date or reproduce outside their race. So the fact that they're limiting themselves to black men sexually and from reproduction wise, that gives us the power. They have less power over us when we can say when we could date Asian, Latino, white, or whatever. They don't have, that gives them less power because we could go somewhere else. But the fact that they don't want to go somewhere else, we have to realize that that's power for us. That means that if we could control our little man down there, we could change the narrative. But that would start with us being abstinent from sex and demanding more for our seed and demanding more for sex.
Right. Well, some will argue that if they had better options, they would use them. Some feel that they don't have the options. That's why, and listen, we know there's a strong percentage of sisters that are totally dedicated to black men and men of ADOS descent. But there are some that are divestors that are beginning to explore their options in a very sinister way that more or less seek to to macerate the image of black men. So we know there's a percentage that does that as well. But Reese from Philly, I want you to add to this conversation because William Glasser talked about the contemporary elements that all human beings strive for. And Glasser said that power, survival, fun, belonging, freedom were five of those core elements that men or human beings actually aspire for. Maslow talked about the hierarchy of needs. At the bottom was shelter, food, clothing, and more or less. But do you feel like the men of ADOS descent in America have power? Reese from Philly, in your opinion.
Financial power, no. National power, no. But in terms of gender, men will have power automatically because of the math. Women outnumber us, whatever it is in your demographic, 4-1, 7-1, 2-1, they outnumber us all over the world. So our power lies in our numbers because there's more of them. See what I'm saying? So the group that has the bigger body, they're the ones that have to be kinder to the other. That's how the power is dispersed. It's mathematics. It doesn't matter how the men feel or how the men feel. When you get to the mathematics, that's the real meat and potatoes of every situation. And just by the fact that them outnumbering us means that they have to be kinder and a little bit submissive. And let me give you an example why. So in Philadelphia, they say it's 4-1. That's extreme to me, but that's what they say, 4-1. So if every woman wanted men to be monogamous and just have one woman, that's 1 out of 4. That means 75% of the women would never get touched, never go on a date, never reproduce, or anything like that. That's just an example of how we have our power. And we stand on street corners and try to catcall and meet women and, hey, ma, this and this and that. But you don't really have to do that, essentially. You could just sit back somewhere and shut up and meet women. Because I've been doing it for 50 years.
I like what this brother's saying. That makes sense. God, I don't know if y'all can hear that cha-ching button. Did you hear it? Did y'all hear like a little bell? Did you hear it?
No.
Or did it say
Ching ching.
Yeah, did you hear it? But
I got you
anyway,
back.
you know, Golden Child said if other groups of men were choosing those women in mass, they would be out. Trust me, a woman is loyal as her options. What's you guys' take on that? Starting on what the funk, then to No Excuse, and then back to Reese from Philly. What's you guys' take on that?
Who do you want me to start first? Sorry, I had to turn it up.
No, okay. I'll let
The
Reese
question that was
answer
on the
it.
board.
I'll let Reese answer it. Then we'll go to No Excuse ENT, and then what the
If
fuck.
you're talking about these women that are divesting, well, I've had some run-ins with divestors in the past couple of weeks, and I've been like studying them, looking into this. I've been watching this gender war for over 10 years, but I've really been looking at the divestors for the past month. And something that doesn't make sense to me in this divestment movement. Now, I just broke down the math on how they outnumber us, right? So if they divest, their odds become greater. Because not only are you trying to go to men who are basically, for the most part, going to go after their own kind of women, right? There's a high probability that if you're a divester, you're one of the women who just having trouble being chosen. So you see what I'm saying? You choose to go somewhere else. So you're trying to get men who are already interested in their own kind of women. You see what I'm saying? And they rank their women from 1 to 10. So how are you going to fit into that ranking? And you're not even one of them. You see, you're like an imposter, an outsider infiltrating in. They're looking at the divestment part of it, leaving, but they're not considering what they're divesting to, and what situation they're going to run into when they get there. You see what I'm saying? There's the rare few that will post pictures with daddy and everything's looking beautiful, but you never get the real story or the truth, and that's a rare occasion in itself. You understand what I'm saying? So the whole divestment thing is kind of confusing, and I think black people everybody needs to evaluate themselves, the men, women, children, and the old, because something is very, very wrong with us, especially in the dating world right now. I'm an older man. I'm 52 years old. Oh, wow. I don't know how old the brother is up here, but if you are my age, you really understand how things change because you watched it happen. You lived it.
Right.
You watched how everybody behaved in the 80s and in the 70s when we were walking around with black medallions on and, you know what I mean, red, black, and green this and leather name belts and all this type of stuff. And then the bitch word, I didn't even hear the word bitch till about 1989, I think.
Right.
NWA, when they did the picture in the Oval Office with Father Bush, that's when our behaviors made a drastic change. It was not progressive. One day, you got to lock your door. The next day, you need a shotgun under the couch. You know what I mean? And the women are half naked and everyone's a bitch. And now there's 500 people getting murdered in all the major cities. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We need to take a real deep look at what happened to us, the older people, because we watched the transition, right? So we're probably the only ones that can figure this out. This generation behind us is in complete darkness. I got 35, 40-year-old homies that act like children, dog. It's hard to have a conversation with it. And this gender war on YouTube is not helping matters. 200 women were shot in Philadelphia or killed last year. That's never happened before. We're on pace to beat that out this year. It's only January.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So apparently, men are more fed up with women than ever before. And black men are more fed up with black women than ever before. Right. Fuck the reasons, right? We need to talk about some solutions. Everybody has to pull back a little bit. You know what I mean? And I heard you ask the brother earlier, do the ADOS hate the women? No, we don't hate the women. When you look at a beautiful woman walking down the street, you're captivated. You're naturally going to be aroused by her silhouette, whether you know her or not.
Right,
It's
right,
nature, right?
right.
That's what you love. You love that. I got pictures of women in my phone. You understand what I'm saying? But the combativeness
Boom.
and
Right.
brother, I know what y'all talking about. When guys go out and get so fed up, if you notice that a guy that's dating a white girl has had 5 or 6 ex-black girlfriends,
Mm-hmm. Right,
right?
right, 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 right,
You
right,
go
right,
through
right.
try over and over, and some of us even will, like some alpha males will even take the simp role to see if they can make it work. You know, and then you get stepped on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure we bringing it on ourselves or if they're just evil, because it's not all their fault. You know
Right,
what I'm saying? Men played a part in the bullshit that black people carry on their shoulders.
right,
We
right.
play a part in it. But as far as dating goes and relationships and families and stuff, man, I think the women have been poisoned so much that they might be unreachable, bro. They
Well,
might.
you're right, Reese. I agree with you 190,000%. It's liberal indoctrination. I think over and over again, men have, man, my man Awapo said that we give our women the right of first refusal, and that basically means that before we go, before we go to any other ethnic groups, they want to more or less survey the land. But the gospel say that you can't take new wine and put it into old wineskin. I did a show with WAP about a week ago, a couple of days ago, and like the teacher Jesus said, in order to come into the kingdom of heaven, you got to be born again. What men of Ados descent and men of Western worlds are saying together is this: if you want to be in a heteronormative relationship with men of Ados descent, you have to be born again from the liberal indoctrination that you more or less use to more or less impact you in a negative way. And what men are saying is that we do have a lot more options than we think we have. We do have the power because we have the power to either walk away. That's why you have emerging groups like SYSBM, Save Yourself Black Man. You have the IPMOR, Introspective Black Men of Reform. And, some people don't understand is that men feel like they can get a better bang for their buck. My man Ingram Experience talked about relationship capitalism. And that basically posits that men have the power to utilize the best means and to utilize their resources to get the best outcomes. Those are some of the major tenets of William Glass's theory of choice. You have the choice to get what's best for you that's going to give you the better outcomes because, watch this, needs drive behaviors. And so men have the need to feel loved, respected, honored, belong, power. But when there's a war going on in your home, when black men have to go do so much outside of the home is where the heart is. Luther Vandross said that a home is not a home, and so, men are looking for a place where they can come and be more or less celebrated. And so ENT, I want you to talk about the power, and you talked about it before in the past, but I want you to piggyback on what Reese was talking about, Reese from Philly was talking about, and I want you to add to the discussion also what the funk. So go ahead. I forgot what the question was, but.
Yeah, so in regards to detractors and women would explore their options, other options if it presented to them, we only could go off of what history has showed us. Out of all the countries that had enslaved people from Africa, the Americas was the least mixed, meaning the United States. You could throw Caribbean countries like Jamaica, Haiti, but they were probably majority Afro, during slavery. But in the United States, we were the least mixed for a lot of reasons. The white people from England, I don't know what classification you call those white people, but they were the most racist out of the Spaniards, even out of the French. Between the Dutch and the English, they were the most racist. They were anti-mix. The Spaniards came and mixed with everybody. The Portuguese came and mixed with black people. But there was a certain code. There is still a certain code that those Anglo-Saxon countries, want to protect their minority in the world, because white people are a minority in the world. Some people probably don't know that. And so that's why you see these treaties between the U.S., Australia, and England. Like anytime we go to war, anything like that, U.S., England, now they're getting Australia on board. Like they're trying to protect something. So the reason why a lot of white men aren't checking for sisters is not because they're not attracted to them. It's not that they wouldn't want to be with them. It's because that they have to have white babies.
Mm.
White babies is they have to have white babies to carry on the privilege, to carry, to maintain the population growth. They have to have white babies. So it would be counterproductive against the whole agenda, to procreate with, women outside of white women. Yeah, white men. Yeah, there's white men that date and do all that, but the vast majority don't. Black women have just as many options to pursue and date men of other races, just like in other Latin countries where black women date whatever. But black women have consistently said that when it comes to, like I said, sex, and that's our downfall for black men and women. Black women put a huge emphasis on sex and the black men being endowed as their preference for black men. Think about that. Black women are limited themselves because of the endowment of what they perceive as black men to have. Black men limit black women limit themselves because they only want. A lot of them say they want to have black babies. We don't come from a mixed culture, so it's not ingrained in black women to appreciate a mixed baby like you would see in a Latin American country. So I think there's just a lot of things ingrained, and that's why I believe that there's not going to be a big swing in black women dating now, because let's face it, I ask black women this all the time, like, why is sex so important? Why would you divorce your husband because the sex is bad, or divorce your husband because you want a man with a bigger penis? Like, that is, if you talk to enough women, they telling themselves. And this is stuff that I hear constantly. So that's kind of why I feel that black women in majority are not going to really date out, and that gives us more, and that gives us more power. Ultimately, we just have to be able to leverage it, just like they figured out how to leverage their vagina.
Well, let's harness things, because you're right. Universally, behavior is the same with human beings. But, your fiance for Colombia that you're dealing with now, what joy has she added to your life? You said they are small micro wars, but overall, because she's been trained in a culture to respect men. I was listening to a brother called Love Crossing Borders, and he was with my man, Aaron Ferris, a Black Man Travel. I saw Richard up there with soon. I'm going to have Richard on my show at some point, even you, Aaron, and also maybe Al agrees if I can get him, because he's very busy. But listen, as I said earlier, guys, needs drive behavior to the point that Al Grease came up with a movie, Frustrated 1, Frustrated 2. I'm going to be in Frustrated 3 with a couple of my other brothers. And, and what people don't understand is that when men are not getting their needs met, when men are beginning to talk, a lot of men are saying enough is enough. And as a licensed therapist, I don't feel like we do enough to more or less equivocate how to give men the best outcomes that they want. How's your life been radically changed as it relates to power and belonging, no excuse ENT, with your Colombian wife? How's your life been radically changed?
I feel more calmer and peace. I had to be, before I would say God aligned the stars and for me to meet her, I had to go through some rough situations. I had to become a better version of me. So international travel for myself and a lot of men, like, to be honest, I didn't feel what it really felt like to be a man until I was in other countries.
Wow. Talk about that.
I thought I was a man in the United States, but being in another country and just being able to, because to truly be a man, a true man never has to worry about sex. That's the last thing on a man's head, is to worry about sex, because a man is on his purpose. He's building, he's trying to grow. The typical, let's say, typical white man in America that doesn't worry about getting laid or worried about, having a certain image to attract women. He could be totally focused on his purpose. But once you have to start worrying about getting those releases, now your priority switch. Now you're in more of you're a boy. When you're thinking about sex all the time, and I've been guilty of, when you're thinking about sex all the time and being able and having to do certain things to attract a woman outside of the norm, you're a boy, you're immature because you're not focused on your purpose. You're trying to accomplish this before you can accomplish that. And so once I start traveling overseas and being able to feel like dating or having sex was not pressure, it was just something that was just going to happen without talking about it, without putting it in effort, I could really just focus on being a man and focus on being in my purpose.
Yes, sir.
So,
right.
So once I got that sense of feeling like a man, like that aura, women can sense that. They can sense they can't walk over you. They can sense the confidence. They can sense the fact that they know that you can get any woman that you want. Once they start to sense that, they become more in their feminine frame and they're less likely to challenge you. About my fiance, I've talked to Andre. Him and his wife and my fiance got parallels. They're independent. They're helpers. They're very, very knowledgeable, and just allow you to lead if once they recognize that you have, the skills that they don't have or the experience they don't have, they'll let you lead. But like even in the U.S., you could be wiser, you could be more experienced than a woman, and she could be 25 and you could be 40, and she's still gonna challenge you. In the U.S. So, so my woman, she's allowed. I appreciate her because she is moldable. She is moldable. Whatever forms that she came in before I met her, she's a different woman than she is today. So I appreciate the fact that I can have an impact in her life. And a lot of things she say, like she learned, she be like, you taught me this. You teach me this, in her broken English voice. You taught me this. And so that, that's she's showing vulnerability. The fact a black woman will never say, oh, you helped me. They'll never compliment you on anything these days, good or bad. So I appreciate her appreciation for me.
Right. It's unfortunate that you have to traverse through so many mazes just to get to that optimal woman, something that your grandfathers and your great-grandfathers got. And listen, there were some simps back in the day that said mama knows best, not me. But they still got a better quality of woman. Fannie Lou Hamer. The Fannie Lou Hamers probably the last of the big mamas, because Fannie Lou Hamer knew that there was a cosmic struggle of equality that was between men of ADOS and women of ADOS descent. But, there's been this ongoing negative thought process of catastrophizing, which is the thinking error that says black men hate black women, and they don't. They just hate the behaviors. And because of that, as Glasser talked about needs driving behaviors, they're beginning to expand their options, as I said earlier, and they're beginning to look for women that can more or less help them get the best outcomes that they want. What the fuck? I want you to add to the conversation, but guys, we're going to go back and then Millennial Mark, but then we're going to go back and do a Psychic Soul Train again. We're going to talk about the percentage of women in America that are actually wife-worthy and wife-ready, because some feel that the percentage is less than 20. Some feel that it's less than 15. Some believe that it's less than 10. So when men begin to travel abroad, people say, oh, you're losers. You can't get women in America. And I say, that's not the case many times. Many times the men just feel like they can do better based on what Ingram called it, relationship capitalism. And because they can do better, then they just expand their options. We're not saying that there's not a remnant here in America that are high-quality women, that are good women. There's a remnant of decent sisters, but watch this. As a man's productivity goes up, because men are not born, we are made. We become men through trials and tests, hills and valleys, victories and failures. We become men. That's part of the Manhood Chronicles. That's why we're having this universal conversation where men are coming together to talk about the challenges that we've explored as men. And so men, once they reach that pinnacle of their success, because many men are invisible until they reach that pinnacle of their success, they're saying that, listen, I've worked very hard dealing with microaggressions, dealing with racism, dealing with barriers. Now, I'm going to expand my options to get the best woman that can meet my standards as a man, because I am the prize catcher. To the men that are listening, you guys are the prize catcher. You determine if she's prize worthy to be on your team. She can be a prize in her head, but until you determine that she's worthy to be your woman, then you're not going to put that ring on her finger. So what the funk, I want you to add to the conversation, then Millennial Mark, as we continue this Psychic Soul Train. Go ahead, what the funk, as we were talking about.
Okay, I wanted to kind of circle back to the gentleman that was from Philly, and he was kind of speaking about, like, when did all this change? And I think this, there's a speaker named Neely Fuller Jr. that you should definitely check out. But he has this kind of theory that's not even really a theory. It's a theory based in complete logic. And it points out that when the Vietnam War happened, a lot of the men who were good men, who were working class men, who were what you would call the average men, they went over to Vietnam and they had to fight the war. And when they were in the war, the men that were left here were kind of given the reins of, like, they were given the power with the drugs and the clout and the look at me mentality. And so the women had to make a choice. Either they're going to stay faithful to these men that are overseas, or start getting with the men who start having money and real opportunities and real flashiness. And the women bit that poison apple. Now, when those men came back from Vietnam, now they're coming back to a community that these men have power over. These men have control. And now here we are, like maybe 50 years later, we have a whole culture that's kind of mimicking the men who are the gatekeepers of this ratchetness, the ones who are doing the stupid stuff, the ones that are kind of making the money with entertainment and with athletics and with doing the wrong things, not so much the Pookies and the Ray Rays, but this is like that thug type culture. And the men who are the ones who are kind of the working class men, now they're the ones that are trying to leave the country and try to find women who honestly support them, because let's keep it 100. The men who are average men in America, if you didn't take that poison apple, you didn't get that jail charge, you didn't get a bunch of baby mamas at an early age, then in our culture, one, those men are kind of like, what's wrong with him? And two, you are kind of just deemed as, we don't really deal with you until it's time for you to come be super simp and come be with the woman. And then still, it used to be back in the day that man was a stepfather. He would get complete submissiveness because that woman made a mistake. So he's coming in to, rescue her. But nowadays, that man as a stepfather, the women know that deep down they're going to leave him anyway. As soon as he says something wrong, they're going to go ahead and divorce him, take half of his resources, and cheat and go right back to the same type of men that they have baseline in their nature that they really want. So the men are like, we're not stupid. We see it. We've seen it so like in the last 20 years with guys come in trying to do the right thing for these women, and then they get jacked up, they get beat up, and then they get completely played in divorce. Until women actually start to see that the divorce and court system is completely backwards, and our Black women in general say, we don't want any parts of it. We see through it. We see it's not anything good for the community. If that were to happen and Black women say, look, okay, the men who aren't the men who let's let them see our kids. Let's stop being so petty and just we'll be the first ones. If that happens, then I honestly believe that Black men will come right back to the table and be like, okay, great. You guys get it. You see the logical points where Black men do want to be fathers to their children. Black men do want to be around their children, but it's just so much drama a lot of times with the court systems and everything being involved that Black men usually have to just kind of walk away and say, I can't deal with this craziness. If Black women in general say, Black men, my baby father, come see your kids, forget all the drama, let's completely start new. And all men could see that Black women really just want the baby's fathers to be around their kids, it would change everything. Neely Fuller speaks about it on a whole bunch of different platforms, but there's one called Hip Hop Cartoons where he has animations done. And it really is a great way for younger people to start kind of ingesting and kind of understanding the programming that's been put inside of us.
No doubt. Shout out to my man, the Ingram Experience, for that generous super chat of $20. The Ingram Experience said that, salute gentlemen, don't want to spend their life constantly checking government power. Women, quick way to expire early. Relationship capitalism, right. And relationship capitalism is all based on, it's tied into what William Glasser talked about, is the power to have power, belonging, survival, fun, and freedom. I'm going to ask you something, Millennial Mark TV. How would you like to add to the conversation? And in your best estimation, do men of Ado's descent hate their women?
All right. Well, first off, I appreciate you allowing me on your panel. But in response to the question of do ADOS men hate our women, my answer to that is no. What we do hate, we hate the fact that we're in competition with our women, and a lot of times, for the longest time, we saw growing up, a lot of men that's on this panel may have saw growing up where some of the jobs even that were coming along were given to black women that should have went to the black man. So this started so long ago. Whenever they start putting the black woman ahead of the black man, and so what it was doing, and it was weakening the black man. You had it to where the black man was getting locked up. We had the drugs in the community. It was it was a conservative effort to destroy the image of the black man, and unfortunately, our women, the only thing you got to do is just hang some money out there. It seemed like the only thing they need to do is hang some money and a little bit of opportunity out there and give them a little bit of power. And we know that power corrupts. So no, we don't hate our women. We hate the fact that at the end of the day, our oppressor is not the white man. It's the woman right next to us in most cases.
That's an excellent point. Ingram, how would you like to add to the conversation? But before you add to the conversation as it relates to do our women hate their men, do you guys feel on a collective, the black men feel like they have power to be men in their relationships, in their families, and also in their communities? But
Coach,
No.
you want to?
yes, I'm talking to you, brother. Go ahead.
Me?
Oh yeah.
I'm talking to Ingram.
Do I feel like black men have power over all? I think the answer is no, because the biggest thing with us is it's not just the power dynamics in terms of you being in your masculine frame or showing leadership. There's a lot of things to contend with. Most of our women are very much government empowered. Government is like, being in a relationship with a woman is like, like being in a relationship with her, you, and her brother, big brother government, is like being in a relationship with John Gotti. And whenever things goes bad, she just calls him and he tunes you up with his goons. The reality of life is this. A lot of women in other countries, they need their men for survival. They have a patriarchy. They're not backed by the state. The state is not offering all these programs and incentives. They don't have a court system that supports divorces and supports handing over resources from men to women. So they need their men. Their men is a part of their survival. If they uncovered women in other countries get exploited. So when they get a hold of a good man, that's like survival for them. Here, because women are so the feminism and the independence and the government, I always say, even when I worked as a police officer, man, who gets black men locked up more than black women? I mean, every time you call to the scene, the dude ain't do nothing. She in front of the cops talking about the guy's genitals. I'm like, yo, are you trying to trigger this dude to smack you? So at the end of the day, you can be in your masculine frame, but a lot of what's not discussed many times is that it's not only that you're in a relationship with her, you're in a relationship with her sisters, social media, maybe her feminist mom who's single, don't have no man. You got every week she's watching Love and Hip Hop, Housewives. So you're checking women like it's a full-time job. You're not just straightening her out last week. She come back at me again. Like, you just came home from working a 16-hour shift. Ain't nobody got no time for that. And I think in other cultures, the cultural construct, the need to survive, the fact that your man is critical to your survival, keeps a lot of the women in check, as different than it is here in America. You dial 911, the cops is at the house in 3 minutes. In fact, the mandatory response for all domestic incidents is a 2-car minimum. So they have a lot of power. You try keeping that in check long term. It's very difficult. That woman has to be a very virtuous woman.
No doubt, no doubt. I totally agree with you 100%. She does have to be a very virtuous woman. I think at the macro level, black men don't have as much power as they need in order to get the outcomes. I don't think it's a ADOS issue. It's an American male issue. It was created against liberal white women towards their men. And sadly, some of our women joined ship to more or less assume that they were oppressed, when in actuality, at the policy level, men of ADOS descent never had the power to oppress because we were muse of the same burden. We were muse working together. Fannie Lou Hamer talked about it. But I'm going to ask you guys a question on this psychic soul train, starting with ENT. Before you got your Colombian wife, and I think I asked you earlier, so much going on inside my head because I'm trying to moderate and talk. Did you feel like you belonged? Did you feel like there was a level of belonging, like you were exonerated and respected as a man? And then I want to go from ENT to What the Funk, and from Reese to Philly, and back to Millennium Mark and Ingram. Did you feel like you belonged as a man?
Most definitely. You know, I mean, I walk with a different sense of purpose. I don't feel
Not now. I'm talking about before you got the experience that you got now. Did you feel like you belonged as a man?
Oh, I felt like I belonged. I just couldn't get that. We just couldn't get that break. You know, it's the same as like I belong to be in the executive suite in a corporate in the Fortune 500 company, but you know, I can't break that. I can't break that glass ceiling, so to speak. So yes, I always felt like I belong, but for whatever reason, the average black man, or even above average black man, can't break certain circles. You know, so that's the short answer to your question.
Okay, all right. What the Funk? Before you went to Germany, and what I mean by belonging, meaning the women you were dealing with made you feel like you belong in your rightful position as a man to execute executive order as it relates to the relationship. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I understand your point. I grew up in Langston, Oklahoma at Langston University, a small black college. So I've been around the community all my life. And one of the great things is that I had a grandfather who understood Native American philosophy and who were really Native Americans. And so they wouldn't let me belong into the community too much because my papa always said, if the black community is truly embracing you at an early age, you're probably doing the wrong things. Your soul's probably not right. If you're loved by the masses of like the black kids that are around you in high school, you're probably doing the wrong shit. So he was very much saying you don't want to belong. And as I started to get older, started dating women and started to date sisters, I never felt like I belonged in the community because I kind of always stayed off of it. I was always just a traveling bartender and just kind of making my money and stacking. And the women who would kind of want to get into relationships with me, I would see that in general, they didn't really respect what was important about me and my soul. And my grandfather had this test, and I'll wrap it up quick. He said, if you really love a woman, you should be able to give her about 85% of what you're making and watch her build the nest. And if she's building it in the image that you want it to be, then that's the woman you need to wife up. So when I did this test with a lot of sisters, I would see that they're spending the money that I would give because I had cash all the time as a bartender. So I would just give them cash after about me being with them for 2 months. Like, let me see how they use this money. And they would use it on things for their own children. They would use it on things for their own vanity. And I hadn't really met any women that was using my money that was kind of like building something that I wanted us to be a part of. In fact, I saw a lot of times they wouldn't really even put the money towards anything that was important to me. So after that, my grandfather said, when you see 1 whole month, no matter what, you break up no matter what. And all the women that I dated always failed that test. It's a great test to use. Because really a man is supposed to be providing and working the world, and then all that financial stuff, you let the woman take care of that. It's not really meant for us to really have to take care of all of that. We're supposed to just be in the world providing, and that's the nature of a Native American code. And when you come home, you see your nest and you love it, and you love that woman for building that nest for you.
Mm-hmm. Right. You know, Reese, you and I are Gen Xers, I and Ingram. The other brothers seem to be probably millennials. Millennial Mark, he's definitely a millennial. But I remember a time when music was more copacetic. The lyrics was better. It seemed like around the 90s, things began to go for the worse. I'm going to start a series called the Gen X Nexus. And at that nexus point, we begin to see a point where things begin to go from the worst. Reese from Philly, there's an old saying that says, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that Philly women are some of the hardest women to date. What's your take on that?
I live in Philly too, by the way.
You live in Philly? What's your take on that, Reese from Philly? And have you felt like as a man that you belonged in your community, meaning you have the power to execute masculine order as it relates to leading the relationship?
Well, that's troublesome in Philly. And I'm a travel man. I've dated women all over the world. And Philadelphia is bad. Yo, I don't like talking about women, man. But
let's be honest, man. It's therapy.
I don't like doing
it. Tell the truth and shame the devil.
I'm from North Philadelphia, dog. I don't care where nobody's from. That is the biggest and worst black neighborhood in America since the beginning. Period. Period. We have the worst of the worst right there in North Philly. I got best friends that are 25, been selling pussy for 12 years. Do that math. I know grandmothers that are 29 that got walking children. Do that math. Look at everybody. See? That's crazy, dog. And
right.
I had my life ruined, my entire substance snatched from me in a matter of hours twice because of black women.
Talk about that. And guys, watch your language. I know you guys are passionate, but please, for the sake of the algorithm, watch your language.
If I cursed, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay, Reese. You're okay, Reese. I know you're passionate. But talk about how your life was wrecked. Go ahead, brother.
So in my 20s, I was a successful Ray in the coke game. And so I had assets. And you could argue that it was karma for what I was doing, selling to my people or whatever. You could twist it around in 1,000 different ways. But a woman made a careless decision with her vagina. It caused me to do something. I left, and in vulnerability ran into another woman who made a careless decision with her vagina. And then I ended up in this situation where people were trying to murder me.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up doing 10 years in prison and losing 10 years in prison, losing 10 years of my life. And I come home and my kids are this tall. You see what I'm saying? So
right.
One event, right? One careless decision from a black woman with her vagina caused another series of events that caused me to lose 10 years of my life. And I don't have to tell you about a man coming home from a long bid trying to re-father himself is the best way I could put it. You're trying to make it a fatherly impact on your kids, and you're not in the building with them. You don't live in the building with them, but you're expected to just keep cutting checks, and nobody will listen to you. So that stemmed into a toxic relationship for years and years that still, even if my kids are grown, hasn't polished itself out yet. So I'm saying all this to say that one small careless decision a woman can make with her vagina can cause so much destruction. And this, I'm not saying this to diss women. I'm saying this to make them understand the power that they have between their legs. I have a saying that says, so goes vagina, so goes the world. I use a different word though. And it's true, because if all the women in the world said tomorrow morning, no man gets any of this vagina until you get a college degree, there will be riots at every school the next morning. You understand what I'm saying? They don't understand the power that they have if they would just not combat us, unify together to better themselves. Each one teach one, these two concepts. Each one teach one, and where we go one, we go all. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And then, because if you think about it, the older brother up here, up there.
Ingram, right.
You remember when the women used to have sitting circles back in the day, and you would catch 12 of them, neighbors on the block talking. You didn't know what they were talking about, but they were bettering themselves and talking about how to become better mothers, better wives, and what have you. Those discussions are had now, but today I'm a bartender too, and I worked in a barbershop where a salon was at. So I'm listening over the discussions, so I get a real good outlook on what people are dealing with, because I get to hear all kinds talk every day. The discussions are different. The mindset is different. Everyone is totally corrupted, dog. All of us, men, women, the elders, and the children, even women my age, are starting to pop up with paw prints tattooed on their thigh and pierced tongues and blue weave. And brother, the girls we went to high school didn't do that, and the ones we met when we were 30 didn't do that. You see what I'm saying? So everyone is corrupted, and it's just caused a powder keg in the black community, bro. And one more thing, I want to give y'all a lesson that might make everybody understand like where our behavior comes from and how it changed and why it changed, men and women. So you have something in your brain called the phonological loop, spelled with a PH. Phonological loop. This is where all the information that comes in through your ear and eye is stored. Images and sounds go into that phonological loop. And if you look at the etymology of the word is phono, image, sound, and then it's loop. over and over and over again. So when you pound something into the phonological loop over and over and over and over, this will become culture. By default, a lot of us will act this out without even cognitively knowing it, that we're doing it. You understand what I'm saying? So when the music changed and it got to this negativity, and it was that drastic jump and that drastic change from righteousness to bullshit, all of a sudden the word bitch became prevalent. And the reason why this worked is because they took the worst of us, right, and put it on the media machines, the television, the cell phone. They took the worst black people they could find, the worst, most ignorant rappers and most arrogant women that make a fuck nigga, they make a the hell with men song every spring and all that, and it corrupted everybody's mind. And so the people listening, the people tuned in, follow along. Black people have always done what their music told them to do. That concept goes back thousands of years. It's nothing new. We always do what our music is supposed to be, a circle of symbiosis. We do something, we sing about it, we do it again. We do something, sing about it, and do it again. We did that for thousands of years without breaking the wheel. When our handlers learned about cabal science and mind science and the real psychology, not the stuff they teach in these classes, the real psychology, they figured out how they can manipulate our minds to determine how we're going to act. And then they can put certain policy in place and do whatever they want to do to us. All right. So this whole gender war and black men coming back and forth to black women, it was all a plan. I know the divestors don't like hearing that, and some men don't like hearing that, but this was a plan. So I feel like each side should understand this lesson about the phonological loop and how we got this way. Stop blaming each other, and everybody take a step back. Divestors start coming to the table with manosphere guys and having civil discussions without no cussing, threats, barking, and all of this. The millions of people tuned in on social media will see this trend take hold and grow. And then black people on the streets will start, acting as such, because this is going into their phonological loop. I'm sorry for ranting so long, y'all. I just wanted to, you know what I mean? Because I get upset when I think about this gender war and I start ranting.
No doubt. Millennial Mark TV, how would you like to add clarity to the conversation? You're a millennial. They say that the millennial culture has probably taken off from the toxic culture of Gen X's. But have you felt like you belonged in your community? I don't know if you're married or not. And do you feel like you belong as a man to the point that you can execute power in the relationship?
Well, that's such a great question, because, for the longest time, and I wanted to actually kind of add something to what the other gentleman was saying really quick, because he made some really good points. But I did want to kind of point out one of the things that he was talking about that we got to kind of put the word to what he was talking about. Our people have a big problem with escapism. We really, hone in and tune into things that helps us take away from the unpleasant, realities of our own personal situations. So that's why we're so easily manipulated by some of the things that's, placed out in front of us through media. So that's one thing as well. But to answer your question, as far as the belonging part, no. And, currently I'm not married. Now, I was married. I got married really young. I got married at 23. I'm 28 now. But I got married at 23, and that was actually, through a time of, when I kind of went through my own personal, red pill rage type of situation. I just got, as many of us black men, we get to a point that we have it with our sisters. We just really, it's like we want to be with them, but I'll just speak for me personally. I cannot be in competition with someone who, I know for a fact that I am tasked to be responsible for. It's like being in a household with your child, and your child rules you, but you're the one providing for the child. It doesn't make sense. It's dysfunctional. So, like I said, I went through that moment, and, I've never really felt, included in the community. My wife was Caucasian. We were married, we was married almost 5 years. The marriage was good. It fell apart. She was, considerably older. But, it didn't pan out. But, we have these conversations where, black men are just out here, looking for other women. They want to, just be in charge. But here's the thing, black men today, we're not our fathers. We don't have people, right there in your face through media working against you. There's no one in this day and time telling you, oh, all black men on the down low, they're all in jail, they're all this, they're all that. Like, black men are starting to really, take charge, and it's a power struggle because a lot of our sisters have been, taught by the women that came before them that, they have the power. And so we're still dealing with that to this day.
And what's your take on the power of belonging or the need to belong? Because Glasser talked about the 5 elements, and he said the belonging was part of it. You were married at one point. Did you felt like you belonged as a man, meaning the power to execute rightful rulership and order? And before you answer that question, I want to thank everybody that donated. Guys, I lost Tim and Gail's moderator. I got to get these wrenches back in order. I don't know what happened, but Gail and Tim, if you guys are listening, I've got to get you guys back in. And then Cool Gent, I tried to add you too as a moderator, but I don't know what's going on. But I got to add these moderators back. I need to add some moderators in general. But go ahead, Ingram, add to the conversation, bro. Go ahead.
I think there's a time period where I felt like I was ruling when I was married. The biggest issue you have, and I know a lot of brothers talk about leadership. Chicago Real, salute to him in the chat. I see him in the chat. I was married before, just like Malia Mark TV, and obviously, one of the things you realize even with our community is that everything is on code. If you're a real leader, and you're really trying to get things done, all that code stuff, political correct stuff, all that goes out the window. It's about outcome. It's about, does the things you're doing get you the outcome you want? And if it doesn't, it's just garbage. But in terms of the home, yes, you can lead. Yes, you can feel a certain way. But for Black men, it takes a lot of work. Here's the problem. Every man wants a peaceful home. He wants a good, loyal woman. He wants to come home to a peaceful home, have somewhere nice to rest his head, because there's so many challenges in the world as we go through in our day. The issue with us is when I hear a lot of brothers talk about leadership is, sure, you can lead, but unlike in traditional cultures where the women come ready as wives, you just have to mold them to fit your plan.
Right.
We're, as Black men, you have to now mold them to be wives and then mold them again to fit your plan. You see the double work? I always tell people, like, I remember this past summer, I had to rebuild the actuator in one of my doors. It went bad in my Toyota out there. Thing hardly breaks down, but anyhow. But I ordered the part that was wrong, but I ended up having to rebuild the old one using a part from the new one I bought.
Right.
But it took me 2 hours in August in the hot sun, and my ass was sweating.
Right.
Now, for me, it's easier for me to just go to the dealership and buy one that's brand new and put it in there. Saves less time, energy. But what happens is, for us as Black men, we're always required to rebuild something. We don't get things that are traditional, then we mold it into what it's supposed to be. So in a household, what happens with us is that you can check a woman, but the problem is you're fighting also against the culture. You're fighting also against the programming of social media. You're fighting against toxicity. So that's why a lot of us die young.
Right,
because
right.
You're not just trying to keep your home in check. You're trying to keep your home in check. And like, let's say a guy in a foreign country may only have to check his woman once a month. A Black man might have to do that 5 times a week, or once a week, or twice every 2 weeks. You see the work. You're trying to make money.
Right. It'll kill
you're trying to be on your purpose.
You're
trying to build your family, trying to build your life. And you got to manage some dumbass stuff that she may have heard from her cousin or her sister or her single, girlfriend or whatever. They brought that rubbish into your house, dropped it off at your doorstep. Now you gotta take time out of your busy day. You're trying to make money. You got to check that now. So that's why brothers be like heart attack, stroke, just be seizing up and dropping dead, man. When you can just get a woman that is traditional, you just mold her to fit your form. If she gets out of line, her mother, her aunts, and all that, knock her butt back in line. You don't have to do all that work.
Right.
You have to check her once a month.
Right. I
think that's the biggest issue we got is people want us to lead. I always say, if you're a lion, you have no business dating hyenas anyhow. You better start dating some lioness.
Right.
And you can't turn women who behave like hyenas into lioness.
I totally agree.
Let them go hang out with the hyena clan. And I think you need to start anew with women that are lioness. You don't have to, you shouldn't have to babysit women.
Well, you know what? I'm going to challenge some of you guys on the thoughts. And, you know, Reese and Philly made a very good point, but I'm going to counter that in a good way by saying this. Actually, men and women both had equal power as it relates to relationship, but I would say that men had the greater power because men are the arbiters of relationships. Now watch this. If every man said no hymen, no diamond, the women would step up too. But because the men would more or less do like men in Eastern culture and say, if you're not a virgin, well, you know, or V, you don't get the ring. So just like men must have this discipline as it relates to, you know, spreading their seed, the women at one point, our women were some of the most conservative women in the world, must have discipline as it relates to giving their virtue away. So if every man said that, imagine the amount of women would say, well, listen, I'm not that. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get the ring. So men really never had power, especially ADOS men, at the level to enact power in culture, because the greatest detriment to many ADOS men were men of sadly sometimes of white skin. And I'm not saying that all white men, you know, use power against black men. Really, it was at the governmental level. But you know, black women were never a threat to white men as much as black men, because black men symbolize power and dominance as it relates to, as Reese said, erasing their seed, but also as it relates to being a more stronger and more or less challenging opposition. Because, you know, Ingram, you played basketball, I played ball. You 6'7", 6'8", I'm 6'6". We both used to hoop back in the day. And, you know, the basketball players weren't intimidated by the cheerleaders. I played too. Oh, you played too, Reese?
Yeah, I'm 6'4".
Okay. Oh, you 6'4"? Okay,
6'4",
all right.
I played for West Philly High.
Okay, cool. We got some giants in the house. But my point is, they weren't intimidated.
6 feet.
6 feet. They weren't intimidated by the cheerleaders, but they were intimidated by the opposing team, the opposing players, because they knew that we could enact damage. So I would say men really have more power. But as I told the women, as I said earlier, if she's willing to protect his 6, which is his ego, which is his back, can she be loyal? Can she get off social media? Can she stop texting her ex from the past? Can she stop dealing with Raekwon, Man, Shermite, and them? But also Day Day. You know, Day Day is a new one in my lexicon. You know, Day Day. Y'all know who Day Day is. Y'all probably got some Day Days in North Philly, Reese. You know, can she get rid of those guys? Because, you know, Reese and Ingram, you and I remember there was a time where the internet or social media, average women got with average men. But the proliferation of the metaverse has told some of these average women that they are better than the men that they're dealing with. You know, you got chicks that some of them are 500 pounds. Some of them got, 5 kids by 5 different men. You know, they had a lot of fun, but they think that they are the prize, and you're not the prize. And, you know, I've had conversation with some of the natives when I was overseas. They actually say they respect, you know, men of ADOS descent to the point sometimes it's shameful, because they say that men of ADOS descent are very egalitarian. They say that they're better lovers, but also they say they let their women get away with a lot more. So men in America have been conditioned to be simps. You know, they sacrifice important masculine principles. That's the conscious simp. You know, the unconscious simp is supplementing irrational male patterns, meaning they're not aware of their unconscious pathologies, but they allow in the relationship to the point that the women don't respect them. Now, to the 70 that are watching, get the likes up. If you guys have not donated, donate to Cash App $7 Smalls. Go check out the Ingram Experience. He got a channel. Go check out Millennial Mark. I don't have a moderator, guys. I got to add some moderators. Cool Jen, I think I gave you a wrench. I had Gail and Tim, but I erased them by mistake while I was trying to add you. So I got to get some moderators because I can't run this show by myself. So, guys, if you want to moderate, I need a couple of guys to moderate for me while we're trying to have this very timely discussion, because ADOS men do not hate our women. They just hate the behavior. And watch this. No excuse ENT. Many times when men travel abroad, they deal with Afro-Latin women. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. Surprisingly, yes. You know, my fiance, she's Afro-Latina, and I don't want to get off the subject, but you know, we go to certain these Latin places that are majority lighter skin, and it could be 10 traditional Latino looking lighter skinned women in one room, and it could be one black one. All the dudes is going after the black one first. You know, as much as they travel to get these exotic women, as soon as there's a black one on the scene, which is usually not in numbers, the black ones always get snatched up or talked to first. So it's an innate thing with black men to want black woman.
Right. I totally agree, man. I totally agree. And you know, Teddy Pendergrass was saying that back in the 70s. You know, Reese, you from Philly. That Philly soul was powerful back in the 70s. You had groups like the Stylistics, the Delphonics. You know, you had a lot of groups from the past. You had Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes, and Teddy Pendergrass said it's so hard to find. He said the only thing he wants is just a peace of mind, and that goes back to what Glasser was talking about as he's talking about fun. When you look at relationships, are men of color or men or Western men in general having fun with the women that they're dealing with, in your opinion?
Repeat that.
So, he said repeat that. That was a lot. All right, let me encapsulate it.
No, the last part.
Right. So do you feel like men of Western men or men of ADOS descent are actually having fun in their relationships, in your opinion?
In relationships, I'm not so sure. I don't have really a lot of experience with relationships. I've been the other guy and been single like 90% of my life. Mm-hmm. So I know the single man in America has fun. America is not fine-tuned for marriage. It's just not. It's the worst place in the world for marriage. It's our culture. It's what you walk out your front door and see every day. That's not the reason why I chose this life. I end up in this life by default because I don't talk to women. I don't approach them. Right. I only talk to the women that approach me, and that is usually somebody else's chick. That's how that goes. I don't know why. There's got to be some unwritten rule to that. But as far as having fun in relationships, I'm a barber, and you know the barbershop is where everybody goes to vent. This is where the men come to tell you all their problems. So by default, I'm also a psychologist. Every day I'm hearing 15 men's problems about their relationship, and they all talk about the same thing: their relationships, their cars, and women. And these dudes all complain about the same thing: the hard work it is being a father and a husband at the same time, trying to make ends meet and keep the woman happy at the same time. Because these women got all these demands that they've developed over the decades. Now you got to do this and that to please them, and they were less vocal back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And less demanding. I'm not one to think that women should just shut up and sit in the corner until you're told what to do. That's not what I'm saying. But to be a warrior against your own significant other, that's not going to help the situation at all. You know what I mean? And I'm finding that they do it when it's not entirely necessary. Like my ex-girlfriend, she put her foot in my ass when she needed to, when it was deserving. You see what I'm saying? But she knew when I meant business, and you know what I'm saying? It was symbiotic, it was mutual, and it flowed. You see what I'm saying? Today's women are walking around with a rage inside of them that I cannot source, brother. I don't have the answer.
Wow. That's powerful. Go ahead.
I want to add a point because it sparked my interest. So, him mentioning that there's so many more expectations on what black men have to do, or it's always we got to do more. So black women have conditioned us and whipped us in such a way that our oppressors have done. We are superhuman, black people in America. The white man has forced us to be more stronger, athletic, because we've been pushed to the brink. Education wise, we've had to always be smarter, be more intelligent. So we have hyper intelligent people in the black race, in the black American black race, and then also sexually. A lot of brothers, including myself, we've traveled to all these countries. The sexual demands is far more in the United States. Like we have to perform sexually at a top level, endurance, time, all this stuff. The average woman overseas is like 15 minutes. Like you need to be done after 15 minutes. So black women have forced us to be superb in the bedroom, the white man, the white system has forced us to be super educated, super athletic, and then also, and then far as chivalry, like when we go to these other countries, we are looked at as so romantic and so sweet. Like when you look at women getting proposed to in the U.S. versus other countries, you never see, somebody got some band playing or some magical jumping out a hot air balloon. Like all these proposals is just over the top than the norm. And so we are pushed and, like I said, created to be like Superman. And it makes us, to be honest, it does make us a better man, it makes us more attractive to other men around the world. But I brought that up because, when we talk about parallels between our original oppressor and a black woman, there's so many parallels to how, whether they got their foot on our neck or how they are conditioning us to be superhuman, a group of black men.
Hey, Kosher.
Hey, yo, I got a question for you.
I think we're pushed to be
When you travel,
Hey, Kosher, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm
I want
sorry.
to ask your brother a question real quick. When you travel,
go ahead,
right?
Reese. Go ahead, Reese.
I want you to be honest. Do you find that you yourself are more chivalrous towards the women in other places than you are here, like kinder and more? You understand what I mean?
No, I'm the same. It's just it's just appreciated more.
Okay. Real quick, shout out to Jane Best for the $20 super sticker. Thank you, guys. And to the 79 that are watching, guys, please share the content. Please share the content. Get the likes up. Get the likes up. Once again, I need some moderators. I'm trying to figure this thing out while I'm talking. And like I said, guys, share the content and donate to Cash App $7Smalls, because this is a very timely discussion as it relates to why men are striving to get their needs met. William Glasser talked about it from the therapeutic world, or from the therapeutic perspective, as it relates to men getting their needs met. And he said there were 5 contemporary elements that relates to men getting their needs met. And so, men are beginning to travel abroad. Men are beginning to work on themselves. Men are beginning to look into options and solutions that are viable for them long term. Ingram, you wanted to say something, but as you add to the conversation, I'm going to do a psychic soul train, Ingram, after you add to the conversation, starting with you. What percentage of women, I think I asked a question earlier, maybe I didn't because I got so much going on in my head, but what percentage of women do you think are wife ready or worthy of a ring? What percentage? Go ahead.
Okay, this is going to be a little rough to what the brother was saying. In my opinion, based upon what I see in the current, it's worse for me now at this age. I'm 47. It's horrible for me because it's a difficult world. But I'll get into that a little later. But to the brother, what he's saying, there's a reason why the expectations is so high. We start from the age of teenagers. Obviously, there's consequences to sexual liberation. Okay, there's consequences of having 75% of the household where there's no men involved, no father, kids being born that way. Yes, men have a responsibility. But by the time a woman get to that point where she gets serious with a guy, I'm just going to say the reason why you're having these high expectations is because these women have been viciously and vigorously pounded out here in this market. They have been pounded hard. So they've been out here, they've dated 20 guys, have ran through them, dudes with baseball bats in their pants. You're coming to the table with a woman that's had 40, 50 bodies on her. She gonna remember that. You know what I mean? That's what you're competing against. You're competing against the 20 other guys that have been there before you. But in terms of women being wife ready, I would say in terms of having the right mental and virtues, what I'm seeing here, maybe 10% of the women in this country are at that point, because what happens is because of the social programming, because of sexual liberation, because of the internet, it's complicated out here. And I think what happens with men, and people think men go to these other countries for whatever sex. It's not, because the price of that has dropped so exponentially low here. It's so easy to get. What dudes are looking for is peace of mind.
Right.
They want to feel like men. They're trying to
feel like men. I totally agree.
They're looking for culture. They're looking for something more organic or substantive in life, meaning, purpose. And they're not looking to get laid, because anybody can get laid. It is a smorgasbord out here. So that's what it really comes down to. But by the time you get these women, they've got so many. I know the women get mad at me when I put body count videos on my channel. I ain't gonna stop, because at the end of the day, that matters. Yes, men, we're responsible for racking up the bodies, but it's just too much. There's just too much pounding out here to be just thinking about wifing up some woman with 50 bodies on her. You're a crazy man if you do that. You're asking for problems.
You're a fool.
They don't get no realer than that.
Mama, come on, man. You know these women be getting the hell pounded out of them, man. Some of the, I'm not saying no. I mean, just saying like vigorously pounded from the time they were teenagers, getting smashed, crashed. 3 dudes in the dorm, and you getting that woman. Now she's all dressed nice. She's 26, 27. Man, the mileage on these broads is high, man. And they're coming, but I'm the prize, coming to the table. I'm the prize, man. You're going to have problems in that relationship. And that was not the case 50, 60 years ago.
That's true.
You can get
Ingram, to add on to that, forget about the sex. You also got to remember that men have been viciously putting money in their pockets to have time with them. We've had a lot of men super simp. So there's many times that women will be like, well, I know this one dude who used to do this for me. And I had this one man that used to do this for me. So forget the sex about it. A lot of women have been viciously tricked on. A lot of men have been viciously putting money in their pocket and showing them this lifestyle that they actually don't want to really maintain for the long haul. They'll spend a lot of money to rent a woman. Women's thinking, well, wow, this one man was willing to do all this for me for the rest of my life, and now this man that I'm with can't do this. When in reality, that man was just renting that experience, and he was putting a whole lot of money to get what he wanted viciously out of her. So there's sex, and then there's also the things that a lot of women want men to strive to be. A man can't do that. The man that was like get in her pants and show, oh, I want to be with you, and say all the sweet things in her ear, it was all cap. And that's why it's a huge problem with a lot of the men in our community, because once you do get with a woman, you'll still have men in our community still saying those sweet nothings in her ear constantly. That's going to remind that woman, oh, wait, I can get that. I can possibly do better than the situation that I'm in right now.
Right. You know what? I want you to answer that. That's a good point. And I want you to give me your number of women that you feel that a wife read. But before you answer that, I want to challenge the query of Long Happy Life. I don't know if it was a man or woman. It said BM haven't built whatever. But let's challenge that from a historical context. When you look at the first people that were more or less decimated in the Revolutionary War, Reese from Philly, he knows about it because that was the city of revolution, was Christmas Addicts. He was a black Indian. It was Christmas Addicts. When you look at the framer of what you call it, Washington, D.C., the architect, Benjamin Banneker, when you look at the men that fought in World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, the men that erected statues, shout out to J. Bones in Ghana, black men have consistently built in America. Black men have consistently given their servitude and their life for this country. And when I hear comments like black men haven't built, you know what, is that cognitive dissonance? I would say that it is, because historically, the society, the country was built off the back of black men and black women working together. It was based on the historical context. There is no America there is no South productivity in textiles without the free labor of blacks in the South, men and women working together. And, our women understood that we were in the struggle together years ago, but it's in an integration. But when I hear these kind of connotations to say black men haven't built nothing, that's a lie in my opinion, because they have. You cannot build your girls at the level of empowerment. You don't empower your boys, but you expect your boys to rise to the same level of your girls if you're constantly saying black girl magic, black girl rock, but you don't say black boys rise, because black boys and men are the defenders of the community. So you cannot feed the mule and then expect the mule to produce. You got to feed the mule. If you ain't feeding the mule ain't going to produce. But back to what percentage of women do you feel are wife ready or worthy of the ring in your opinion? And then go to ENT, Reese from Philly, and then Millennium Mark. Go ahead, brother.
We're talking about in America?
Yes, sir, in America. It doesn't matter the color, this in general.
And in America and in our community, the black community, correct?
Right. Starting with the black community.
The black community in America?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 5%.
Wow, you said 5. You said less than 5. Why? So tell me why you said 5.
Because until women actually are willing to get married without even going into the system, then if you can't even have that conversation where you're like, can we get married and not do it on paper and going into the U.S. government? If she says no, then I don't think she's wife ready. Because until you can get a woman to actually say, let's get married outside the U.S. government system, she's not wife ready to me. And the one thing that you said about do you think that Steve Jobs built Apple, or do you think that the Chinese labor and the peons that he used built Apple?
That's an excellent point.
A lot of times, yes, black men built this country, but it was because we had the overseer trying to so we would have built this country amazingly, but because we had somebody over us, they get the credit of it. So that's the point I wanted to make about that. Steve Jobs gets the credit for being a genius, but in actuality, it was the Chinese labor workers. It was all the people that he, stepped on who actually built Apple. But he gets the credit, same way that white people get credit for building America. When in reality, we built it. The Chinese people built it with it was the people that white people stepped on that built this country. But they'll never get the credit.
Right. No excuse, ENT, what percentage of women, regardless of race, starting with women of ADOS descent, but if you had the data broad outside of ADOS descent, what percentage, in your opinion, is wife ready or wife worthy, in your opinion, brother?
Wife ready or wife worthy? I don't know the numbers percentage. It's based off of the amount of women in college, because the best time to meet a woman is in college. A woman that you see every day, you live on campus. A lot of people that went to college say, in my experience as well, college is the best time to meet a woman. So based on that, I don't know the percentage of women that attend college versus don't, but I would say at least I would say the majority of women during their college years between 18 to 22 or 18 to 23, depending on when they started, I think are marriage minded, because that's when you kind of get them in the most vulnerable state. You get to see them, with makeup or throwing things on. You get to see them every day. You get to see them sneaking dudes in and off campus. You get to see all that. And so that's the best time. Outside of that, outside of it, it's just too risky. But I wanted to kind of spin off something WT Funk said about the men that that's in women's ear and that started giving money to women and things like that. You guys remember the movie Dead Presidents with Lawrence Tate?
Yes.
So he went to Vietnam. He went to Vietnam War, and his wife or baby mama, whoever she was basically messing with some pimp. He come home from Vietnam, and she got all these things. Like, I guess this guy was taking care of her, and the dude must have said to Lorenz Tate, like, you like all them, like you like all them things your wife do for you now that I taught her, basically implying that whatever sexual things he was doing with her, he was doing with him. But I kind of wonder, because I'm not from that, I'm 40, I'm not from that time, but I kind of wonder, with that synopsis in that movie, like black men going to Vietnam, coming back, and that's kind of like the pimp era too, where the pimps sweet talk the women, and they was the ones to be able to buy the material things like that. Did that start kind of like part of the problems that we having today?
That's excellent. Reese from Philly, and then Millennium Mark TV. Reese from Philly. I know you live in Philly, and we know that Philly can be rough and caustic. But what percentage, if you had to guesstimate from a perspective as it relates to the demographics of America, are wife worthy and also wife ready, in your opinion?
All right, you said wife worthy.
Wife worthy and wife ready.
Right. I got to give a disclaimer. I do not enjoy answering this question, but I'm going to.
Yeah, don't curse, please don't curse.
I'm not. My number is a little bit lower than the other brothers, and I'm not trying to outdo them.
Right.
I'm going to tell you why. I could look at what's in front of me out in the public and say, okay, 90% of these chicks are crazy. But I'm coming from the perspective of the other guy, right? So the women in the neighborhood that everybody thinks are good women, married, do dishes, cook, manage the house, take care of the kids, these women here, right?
Right.
I land a lot of these women. And I did so because I was working in a barbershop.
Right.
And they are much, much more clever and sneaky than the chicks that are open whores.
Right. You're just being honest. Go ahead.
Damn. All right, let me think before I talk. So I don't want to sound braggadocious, right? But if you're moving a certain way out here in the world, right? I'm 6'4". I was light skinned in the 70s. Like women have been raining down from the heavens on me. And when you're seeing a little bit of money and you can drive a fancy car and you shine and you hit the gym and all this, right? Women will throw themselves at you secretly. You'll find a phone number under your windshield wiper or something, or you know what I mean? Little stuff like that. Just giving one example. So my experience has been with women who would have been deemed maybe the best women in their communities. Seriously, dog. I'm not trying to polish this up at all. And I've been doing this for a long time. Remember, I'm old.
I believe you, brother. I believe you.
I'm old. So I would have to say like maybe 3% or lower. Because you got like 90% corruption. One brother's already said 10%, and one brother said 5%. Now here I'm telling you, I'm giving you a perspective, a whole entire perspective that's tapping into a whole nother demographic of women. Y'all talking about the obvious ratchets. I'm talking about the ones in the shadows, the wizardess of Oz. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's just my experience. You know what I mean? And it might be distinctive to my location, or, you know, because different areas, different things happen. So big cities are like this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's my answer to that.
Right. That's powerful. That's powerful. And you're right, man. You know,
I didn't like saying that.
Well, you're just being honest, man. But, you know, it happens a lot when men went war. A lot of babies, you know, people always talk about men having kids outside of, you know, the families and having outside babies. But there were a lot of women that were having babies by their men when they were fighting over in the wars. The milkman, they had a story about a milkman that said he fathered over 300 kids. So that myth was true. The milkman and the mailman was making babies with some of these housewives. So some of these women weren't as virtuous as you guys thought they were. You make some very good points. I'm Reese from Philly. But
let me say something, man. I don't want the men on the panel and the men listening to I'm not trying to mess up your hope. And you know what I mean? Because every man wants a good woman by his side. I'm not trying to make it seem like it's no hope for us. Guys like y'all can land women like that. You guys like y'all will be the select few that get that lottery ticket. You see what I'm saying? There's enough men out here that are doing BS that even out the stakes. So for every ratchet chick, there's a piece of shit. There's a piece of crap dude to go right along with her. You see what I'm saying? So people like you and good women, y'all will find each other. It might take a while, but y'all will find each other. So I don't want nobody to lose hope by what I said. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we talked about that hopamine. You know, hopamine is that that dopamine rush. I call it hopamine that more or less put a man in a drug-induced state called love. And because of that drug-induced state called love, men become saboteurs of their own ignorance because they get caught up in that hypnotic state, which in essence, when they realize that hypnotic state and that woman is not the woman that he thought she was, it causes him to have what's called red pill rage or an existentialist crisis. And in that crisis, that man do one or two things. He becomes totally angry, bitter, depressed. He goes to the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And he vacillates between those 5 cycles until he finally comes to his sense. And he began to realize that it's time for me to focus on myself, which lead to movements like SYSBM, because many men are tired and frustrated. As I said earlier, many men want good women. Many men want wives. But, you know, Reese, you keep it 100. Based on what you've seen, and it goes back to what Ingram was talking about, because many have had a lot of fun. You know, a lot of times an average guy in the bedroom don't meet their needs because her body's used to a man, you know, like Shermike and Ray and Raekwon the Man, that, you know, that's what she's used to. So now, you know, an average guy that's, say, a tech guy, he worked hard, he went to school for 5 years, he don't have a lot of experience. She's not going to be pleased with him. She'll tolerate him because he got money, but she's gonna either tolerate him till she get rid of him, or she's gonna be having fun until she divorce him. Millennial Mark, how would you like to add to the conversation about what percentage of women are wife worthy and or wife ready, in your opinion? Go ahead.
Well, you know, my number is going to be completely different from everything I've heard, because I actually believe there's more who are wife ready and wife worthy. I'm going to say about 25%. Okay. Here's the reason why I say that. We really have to understand something.
That's still low.
Women,
but go ahead.
There's a lot of women out here who actually know what men want. They just flat out refuse to give it to you. You know, they know exactly what they need to do to be that woman for a man. And so, you know, one thing that we have to look at, which is something that the gentleman before even mentioned, you know, what are some of the things that women are looking at as far as, you know, how they pick their men? Like you said, you know, you're 6'4", light skinned, you know, XYZ, you know, especially if you got money, you know, they flock to you. I've been through that. You know, I'm 6'6", you know, and I'm 28 years old, 6'6", and, you know, I started getting my money a little bit younger. And so I agree with you on that. So what are our women looking for? So that really, we need to kind of understand that, because, you know, no one's really teaching. And I'll say the same thing when it comes to us as men too. You know, we hear guys say it all the time. And, you know, I'm going to try to respect the channel. You know, brothers, they'll go pick a woman that they know ain't no good, but they'll be like, oh, but she got, you know what, though.
Right.
You know, so, you know, how are we picking them? So that's why I think these numbers are so, you know, just skewed, because, like, you know, the other brother, he's in Philly. So, you know, it's based off your environment when it comes to that percentage, you know, how you look at the amount of marriageable women. I'm here in, you know, in the DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth, and I see a lot of marriageable women. That's where my number comes from. But, you know, who are they going after, you know? And that's the same thing. That's how I come up with mine.
Right. Well, actually, you know what? You know, and it could be because Reese from Philly is in Philly. But whether it's 5% or whether it's 25%, that's still low.
Right. No, it's still low, but it ain't, you know, it ain't at the bottom. It ain't at the bottom.
Right. It's still low when you think about quality, you know, when you think about a man want to divest and give his best to a woman. But, you know, Ingram, you brought a lot of clarity to the conversation. And I want to ask you this question, you know, as it relates to, you know, rampant promiscuity. Do you think that the rampant promiscuity of some of our women, not all, but a few or some, has caused them to think that they are better than the men? Or do you think it's caused them to more or less be emotionally unstable, which in essence is making a lot of men feel like they're powerless? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Ingram.
Okay, there we go. I think it makes them, I think it makes them emotionally unstable, because here's the deal. In my opinion, I don't think women were supposed to be passed around like Skittles or something like that, or shared with multiple men, because there's imprints that come along, there's baggage, there's emotional damage that comes along with being, you know, pounded out all the time. You know, they're dudes leaving them, dudes not being with them. You may have an abusive dude. Men are not clean up, not supposed to be cleaning people's mess up. And you're not supposed to be cleaning up from undisciplined people anyhow. Right. And even in a sense, we have done so much female empowerment in this country, in this gynocentric culture, that even an average woman thinks she's better than an average man.
Right.
And even,
right.
And then we also have this addiction to attention and validation through the culture, through the social media. We see it in our music all the time. So you can get some of these women, if they have 3,000 followers on social media with people in their DMs all the time, people liking and commenting on everything they do, whether they show a certain part of their body, that can become addicting too. So we mix that in a world where there's a lack of accountability for women. And we've created all these simps with the single mom thing. We've created a culture of worshiping women. And it's very hard for a woman that's not to get to a woman's head, and she not to get delusional about things. So you're trying to keep that person in check, and you're trying to hold that person accountable when they're watching TV, and that's reinforcing certain negative social patterns. They're listening to family members of single women and all these other things. You got simps in the DMs. you got the pounders, like my brother up here from Philly, Reese from Philly. I'm like about 30 minutes from you. You know what I mean? You got these warriors out here. No, I'm just playing, brother. But you know what I mean? It's a difficult world, man. You got a lot of influences that we didn't have. Everybody's interconnected with these things. We're always talking, we're always in conversation, we always linked. So there's a whole lot going on that people didn't have to deal with 50 years ago. I mean, I had to literally get up and go knock on somebody's door, have my 25 cents for the payphone to find somebody. You know what I mean? So it's a different world and a lot of different pressures that we're not dealing with the same woman. So even if you have a woman that you think is wife worthy, you got to also understand you're dealing with, in our culture, because there's no cultural backing. You see, they don't have grandma that'll slap you into Tuesday, auntie, healthy married relationships around that hold her in check. What is the consequence for women stepping out of line in relationship? They get encouraged, they get supported. You go, girl, it's his fault. If a guy, you know, I did a video before on how men look when they're coming out of a relationship. And I always say, every man looks like Mr. from The Color of Purple when he come out of this relationship nowadays, because his whole brand is, and his whole has been, the coalition has damaged his whole brand coming out of a relationship. This is the reality of relationships today. You're not just in a relationship with that woman. You're fighting forces all around. And when you don't have that culture, that community that holds these negative, when women step out of line, that auntie ain't smacking her back in line. So now you as a man, you better be really, really in your masculine frame to be in a marriage with these women. Either that, or you become a happy wife, happy life simp. There's only two options.
Right.
You either that strong masculine dudes that hold these women in check, and that's a full-time job. Nobody wants that. Even a woman that you say is marriage ready, you have to maintain them in a way. Unlike other cultures who have the cultural elements of family tradition and culture and expectation that hold people in line, period. We don't have that now. So it's willy-nilly. I agree with Reese from Philly. I'm 30 minutes down the street. I used to work in the Camden, Philly, North Philly, you know, because my kid is was in the Catholic League. So I know the Philly area good. And that's what men are escaping for. Men are not escaping to get laid. They're just throwing WAP around. You can walk around, pick WAP up off the ground. It's not laid. It's culture. Men want traditional culture. Men like rules. Real men like a code. Live by a code, die by a code. We just don't, we don't function well sometimes in this willy-nilly society without rules. Because you can get a man to adhere to loyalty code. You can even get a man in prison understand a code. But there's no code. So everybody just does whatever they want to do. And that's not going to fly, unfortunately.
I want to ask Millennial Mark, you're a millennial, and what the funk of millennials? And then we're going to go to Reese. In the ideal world, the next woman you decide to give a ring to, what must she have in order to be your wife? What must the next woman have in order to be your wife? Because watch this. These conversations are more or less predicated on men sharing their story through the group elements called universality. We all have a common struggle. We all have that installation of hope, like, Reese talked about, hope that we're going to find decent women. That's why we're having these conversations. Also in group therapy, you have what's called sharing the information, but also corrective recapitulation, which means we go back to the past to correct where we messed up at so that we can be better men moving forward in the future. So to Millennial Mark TV, when you get your next queen, you 6'6". I'm 6'5", 6'6" with shoes on. Ingram is 6'7", 6'8", played for Seton Hall. Reese is 6'4". What the funk is 6 feet. We got a NCAA Division I basketball team. I'm gonna be pounding down in the middle. But Millennial Mark, the next woman that's your wife, what are the 5 virtues that she must have that you're not going to compromise on? She got to have all these 5 virtues.
Well, definitely number one, I need a woman who's going to be on my plan. And that's something that, especially, if you're a man moving with a purpose in your life and you have a direction that you're going, when you get to a point to where you're ready to introduce a woman again to your life, and like me, I have a business, I'm a business owner, very successful business. And I don't want a woman who's trying to go her own direction. I'm just not one to, just try to deal with that. I want a woman who's, willing to be a part of the plan that I've already created and the structure that I'm putting together as a man that's going to take care of our household. If she's not willing to do that, then of course there's other men out here for her. So that is, primarily one thing that that is an absolute must, because I don't want anything that's going to take my attention away from what I'm building as far as, for my household and for the lifestyle that I'm going to be able to provide for her and, our future family together if we're not on the same path. So, she has to be willing to be on my plan. We're going to have to be on the same path. And of course, we all say submission, but we have to make sure as men that, we're giving them something to submit to, you know what I'm saying? Because we throw that word a lot, we throw that word around a lot, saying that we want, submission, but we got to make sure that we're putting a woman in a place to where they can submit to us. And I'd like to think today, Black men are doing that. And that's why we're finding it so difficult, because we are doing this. We are, like that comment that you pulled up earlier when the individual said that Black men aren't building anything. Well, it's sad that, you have people that think that way, but maybe that's just that person's lived experience. They never came across a Black man who's built anything because they're not built for that type of Black man. So it's not that Black men aren't building anything. It's just that's not the type of man that you attract. So that's why you have that perceived, that perception, because that's your lived experience. So that's just, really, I only really have just that one. It's just being on my, just being willing to be a part of my program, because, when you come into this, to this household, it's established, we're going places. And sometimes women, they have their own path that they want to go, and that just doesn't work for me.
So you only named, I said 5, you gave 2. That's only 2 that's major for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So kids by multiple men doesn't matter. A woman that had a lot of fun doesn't matter. None of that matters to you?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
So a woman with multiple kids by different men doesn't matter to you?
Oh, no, that matters. I'm not signing up for that.
Right, that's what I said.
I'm not signing up for that.
Right. And also, Glasser talked about needs drive behaviors. Ideally, you want a woman that respects herself as well, correct?
That's correct. That's
no
correct.
doubt. All right.
So, but that's the thing is, the reason why I didn't call those out, because those are the type of women who I go after. I go after women who are childless, and I go after women who, carry themselves in a respectable manner.
Right. Well, 6'6", man, I know you got them knocking your door down, dog. I know they knocking your door down. You're be an All-American overseas, man. Reese from Philly, if you would get married, what are the 5 qualifiers that a woman must have? You don't even look 54, man. You look young, by the way.
All right. Thanks, bro. I'm going to try to give you 5. All right. I'm going to cover looks first, because that's the obvious one. So I don't need a super exotic magazine dime. If you take care of yourself and you're under 140 pounds and you have a half decent shape, you don't have to have giant breasts or giant booty, and you got some nice little facial features, your hair could be brush length. But if you're a fox, if I can put you on my arm and I'm okay, that's good enough for me. And it always been like that. I was like that when I was 15. That's one thing, the looks. Now, second, she has to have balance. I don't want a girly girl, but I don't want a tomboy. Like, you got to be able to pick up the hammer and help me fix this table. You see what I'm saying? But throw on the heels once in a while and doll yourself up. That kind of thing. The balance right there. Number 1. Number 3, you got to keep me healthy. I'm vegan. I pride myself on my health. I'm a gym rat. And I want to stay young looking for as long as I can, because I know my days are numbered. So she has to be able to keep me healthy and in shape, and because that will work on my self-esteem, and that will also bring balance to the relationship. Because when you feel good about yourself, you see what I'm saying, you can gauge the relationship better when you're in it. Like, you things won't bother you so much, you know what I'm saying? And plus the woman will have some visual candy and that sort of thing. So that's number 3, visually. And she just can't be I don't like women that, I put all these things into this one category. I don't like women that cuss and smoke and do like manly bar type of things and confront people and boss up, and I don't like that stuff. I like feminine women. I don't like combativeness and rage. And as far as the kids go, I'm a little older, so the young guys might disagree with me on this, but I can deal with a woman with multiple kids if she's if her kids are grown and out the house and successful and pretty good, that's so. When you get 50, I mean, come on now, your wife isn't going to be 22. I date younger women. I meet younger women all the time because of how I look and all, but they don't never take me seriously. It's usually a couple flings, and then so if I marry someone, it's going to be someone probably over 35, could have a grown kid, high school or something like that. But I'm not going to deal with multiple small children running around the crib, but not because the woman has children, because I'm old. You know what I'm saying? I don't. Yeah, it's like I got other reasons than the younger guy, but that's pretty much 5.
Right. Okay. What the fuck? What are the qualifiers for a woman that she's going to be in your life and make you a very honorable and viable man? What are the qualifiers? Because as I said earlier, if she expects you to protect her 6, she got to protect your 6. And guys, to the 100 that are watching, get the likes up. Guys, I need you guys to donate to the channel. If you haven't, donate to Cash App, $7 Smalls, and also share the content. But what the fuck? Go ahead, brother. What would you say? What are your 5 qualifiers?
Okay. I'm 40 years old, and I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. So I actually do want to find a woman that has kids already. And I want her to be able to be, I want to see that she's a great parent before I'm even in the picture. So I see that she's able to discipline her children in the right way and impart code on their children, boy or girl, because I have a boy and a girl. So I need help. So I'm definitely looking for a woman that's a great parent. And a lot of men say I should get one that doesn't have children, but honestly, it makes way more sense for me to find someone who already has gone through it, and I can judge that and then decide if I want to have her in my life. A woman who's artistic, meaning that she understands the need for her own space and her own time, because I'm a person, sometimes I might get in art mode and I kind of want to be in my own zone. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you. It just means that maybe I need to be in my head for a bit so I can kind of create. And I don't want to be pulled out of that. And sometimes women will forget that sometimes men just need to be in their own space. And I may not answer my phone for like the whole day because I'm just kind of trying to do my own thing, and she's not offended by that. A woman that who is naturally funny and clever and sarcastic and can tell a story from point A to B without it going all over the place. Like she has that inner monologue in her head to wrap up a story in 3 minutes. Like I want a woman who knows how to wrap up what she's trying to say and gets to the point. I want a woman that's in shape, and not so much where it's like she has a body that's just like this, but I always do the test where it's like, if we're in a scary movie in the woods and we got to run away from a killer, you run away from a minute without like pout and being out of shape? Like, can we run away together without me having to like pull you along? If so, then you're probably in the right shape. So I want you to be natural where you can come out the ocean and still be looking good. So that means if you got wigs, fine, like have wigs, but have it balanced. If you have makeup, fine, but have it balanced. If you have eyelashes, no. But mainly be natural, but at the same time, I allow some of the enhancements, for some of those nighttime activities, so we can kind of do that. Right. And then the last thing is, the last thing that's truly important to me is that this world's getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I need you to understand that you are my muse. You are my balance when I come home. So as I'm doing whatever I have to do, like, how to keep home copacetic. You know how to keep home fun. So that means if we're gonna like start playing Mario Kart and like we got like blowjobs on the line or whatever, like we have that where we can just be naturally having fun with each other while everybody else in this world is taking everything so more seriously. So those are the 5 things. Just keep it simple, stupid, and don't be so dramatic. And don't forget to do your squats. Squats are important.
You're right.
Yeah.
And give me a minute, Ingram. I'm going to read out these super chats. Shout out to Too Hot to Raw for the $5 super chat. He said Western culture doesn't produce wise wholesale anymore for those of the white mind that have to fight severe programming. It's right. You're right, brother. It's rough out here because the good women that are trying to fight the good fight, they're being inundated by toxic women. Shout out to my man D'Angelo Bay. Just say no to dopamine. Right. That's that dopamine rush that's tied to why we have these conversations. Men are coalescing together in these conversations because they have hope. That's the whole premise of group therapy, to have hope. This is a synthetic barbershop where men come together to share their stories and their pain. But once again, these stories that these men are sharing is unapologetically masculine, but also it's unfiltered. You're getting it raw because if it ain't seven, it ain't kosher. if it ain't kosher, it ain't right. So we're talking about some of the elements that men are actually talking about or pontificating as it relates to the burgeoning and as it relates to them getting their outcomes that they want. Ingram experienced, if you got a woman, the next woman that gets the ring, what must she have? The 5 major things she must have in order to be your wife.
His face. Look at his face.
See, what the funk? You always think I'm going to say something crazy. Come on, man. I can try to wrap it up in the 5. And first of all, we got to start physical appearance. I like women that work out, that take care of their bodies. Okay. I like women that are feminine. Okay. I don't want to deal with no masculine behavior in women. And I like women that are natural. So I guess I'm going to put these under physical appearance and behavior. But I don't want women with those snuffleupagus eyelashes around me. I don't want to be looking snuffy all day long. And if you patting a weave, that's disgusting. There's no reason why women should be doing this and this. Take that crap off your head. It's nasty. It's dirty. It's sweaty. Hair grows naturally out the head. You don't need to go put that. I don't know what they did to our black women. Our black women have beautiful natural hair. We don't need to. Eyelashes grow naturally. You don't need to buy eyelashes from the stores. I don't think, obviously, whatever those things, whatever. If you have to pat it and scratch it all the time, it don't belong there. It's nasty. Take it off your head. Don't need it. Natural women are great. We start with loyalty and character. I need a woman that's going to be loyal to me. I don't want to have to wonder about you. And that is reflected in women with less body count. I don't think women should come to the table with, I'm an older guy. I'm like Reese from Philly. I don't expect perfection out of life. Okay. If you have a kid, that's fine. If he's older and it can't be no kid that I'm not taking care of nobody else's kid. No disrespect to you. His father needs to be paying child support. His father needs to be taking care of that kid. He can go live with his father. It's not my job. I'm not raising that guy's kid. At the end of the day, whatever you got going on with him in the past, it's the past. I'm not doing that job. Okay. And if you're older woman, you need to come to the table with your stuff. Okay. I'm not getting any virgin. I'm not getting any newbie off the street. So you got to have your own money, because I don't get the benefit of your virginity or your unused wound. So I'm not going to be bringing all this money to the table for that. No, absolutely not. I wouldn't expect, yeah, that's the reality of life. Okay. Your ability to be peaceful and cooperative. I don't check women. I get rid of them. If they don't get on my program, my program is it. I'm not going to be holding you accountable every week. If you give me a headache at this age, 47, you're going to be looking for another man the next week. I just don't have time for that.
Just don't have the time, right?
When I was younger, maybe I'd tolerate that. I'm not molding anybody. I'm a relationship capitalism person. Right. It's like a business. If I go to a business and you give me bad service, you won't see my black ass back there. I'm not coming back. I'm not going to patronize poor service. Inspirational. I believe in people adding value to each other's life, people pouring into people's life. I'm a positive brother. I'm up. I'm in the gym early in the morning. You see me in some of my crazy videos, but it don't matter. I believe in adding value to people's life. I don't believe in people being a crutch for my problem. So I got a problem, I go fix it. Or I call the kosher condition or something. Kosher, I got a problem. I need your help. You know what I mean? I don't bring, you got to have some sense of self-improvement, improving yourself. You got to be working on your purpose, making yourself the best version of yourself. Right. I don't need anybody that's on antidepressants. Whatever problem you need to fix your problems before you get into a relationship. And the other thing is, I want somebody that has cultural reinforcement. What I mean by that is this. And a lot of guys, what we mess up is this. We get into a relationship with a woman, but we don't look at who's talking and who's in her ears. If she had a history where maybe her dad was a simp, or the women in her family are all single, feminist, radical women, and they're talking to her every day. All of her friends are single and all social media, radical, crazy feminist women. What kind of cultural reinforcement? Because I always talk about this, is a big difference between dating and courting a woman. If you're courting a woman, you're looking at what are you getting into for marriage. You're looking at her family. You're looking at her father, her mother, her aunts, her sisters, her brothers, because that's who's going to wreak havoc on your life. It's not just her. It's who she listens to every day. Who are her influences? I want to look what she's doing on social media. How are her, how is she going to be loyal to me or bring value to my life if she's attached to any kind of drama or issue? So maybe my list is a little bit more, but realistically, what everybody wants is a peaceful home, but you have to look beyond the woman to get that. Her family, and the type of energy that she brings in her life that she's going to add to your life. But
Right. Let me ask you a question, Millennial Mark, starting with you, and then we're going to end this stream because I have to get to the office. But I'm going to start with you. Some call it SYSBM, which means Save Yourself Black Men. For the men that want traditional women, not modern women, traditional women. I'm going to say it again, traditional women. Can they find it within the confines of America, or they have better odds of traveling abroad to find a traditional woman that's been raised to be a wife? What's your take on that?
So if we're talking about the odds, then yeah, they'll find it, overseas much easier. Now, can it be found here? Yes, it's just, it's few and far between. But yeah, I mean, it can be found here, but talking about odds, nah, man, overseas, you're going to find it.
Okay, all right. What the funk? You're in Germany. Are the odds higher for a man to find a woman that's wife-worthy here in America, or is it abroad, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely abroad. Definitely abroad. I can expound on it, but it's just I think Black women here have been raised with a father in the household, so they automatically value a man differently than Black women in America. And again, I can't preface this enough. There's a ton of Black women in Switzerland, Netherlands, and here in Germany, and they value the American Black man because they've been seeing the American Black man on entertainment for their entire lives, but most of them never come over here. So if you're a Black man from America and you make it to this side of the world, you will find women who are ready to submit and be wifey ASAP.
Shout out to my man, Mr. Palmer. Mr. Palmer, that's my homeboy, Mr. Palmer. On child support, he said, my mama's Black. Reese from Philly. If you want to get a traditional wife, a traditional woman, are your options or the odds of finding a traditional woman better within the confines of North Philly? Or should you go to the South, like Dallas, Texas, or Atlanta, Georgia? Or are your options better by getting on a plane and going abroad to get your wife? Because see, as I told the guys earlier to the panel that's listening, I told you that needs drive behavior. Men are not leaving America because they don't want to find women here in America. They're leaving because they say they're just too hard to find. And so if you're a traditional man with traditional values, with traditional norms, and have a conservative ilk, then you're trying to find a woman that can more or less meet those parameters. So what's your take on it, Reese from Philly? Go ahead, brother.
Well, me and a couple of my tech-savvy brothers are working on a P-36 uranium space modulator with a flux capacitor because we're going to try to build a rocket ship to find women in another system somewhere. But that joke, listen, the men who travel know. I had a relationship with a woman in Hawaii, and it was totally different. Not only did she treat me 1,000 times better, an army of women in her family came to my aid.
Wow.
Yeah, like when I met her cousins and her grown sisters and her aunts came over there to meet me, and everybody bought food. They invited me to all their family gatherings. I've sat around in family gatherings at other people's houses, other women that barely knew me. They had their house in order. They treated me like a king, even though they didn't even know me. And so it's not even the women that you're dating. Like, it's the women that you're walking down the street you'll have better experiences with. For example, the other day I'm in the hair store and a woman is coming in behind me, and I didn't quite open the door quick enough for her. Right? I'm trying to be chivalrous, but my timing was off. So when she came in the store, she goes on about, oh, that's the problem with these ends. They ain't had no respect, and you dumb ever. And then this went on for a minute and a half, and this ended up turning into, I'm gonna call somebody up here to do blah 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 to you. All the while, I'm not saying a word. That will not happen in any other country on earth.
Right.
That's my answer.
Right. That's true. That's true. To the Ingram experience, is the option for men to get traditional women that are wife ready? Should they wait and try to find her here in America, or should they get on this plane and travel abroad? What's your take?
My take: travel abroad. I'm big into capitalism, and I'm big into relationship capitalism. And reality of it is nobody changes unless there's competition. It's like a business. Right. And I used to get into an argument with these brothers on the block all the time. They'd argue about the way, and sometimes they're limited because that's all that's in the area. A certain business treats them. And I said, well, every day you do is line up here spending your money. I bet you they'll act better if you stop spending your money here. It's like that with relationships too, because like I said before, in those cultures, those women are raised wife ready. You don't have to mold them. You may have to mold them to fit your program, but genuinely, they have not been government empowered. And their aunts and their grandmas and their mothers and everybody, like their men are a part of their survival. So them allowing certain men to pregnate them or knock them up or being out here in the street, like if you get impregnated in some of these places, you don't have the government with its welfare system to bail you out. You better make sure that's the right type of man that knock you up. So when they do get a hold of a good man that's a provider and a protector, those women want to latch on to him for life because that's their covering in these countries. They don't have government covering. And the women in that family, because those people are really in tune with generational wealth. If you mess with the money coming into that house, them old ladies ready to smack you upside the head. You tell me this man is working every day, hard every day, providing, protecting his family, and you don't have a hot meal on the stove for him, you're not taking care of him. So their grandmoms, their aunties, their sisters, everybody holds them in line. Unlike here in America, where they don't value good, hardworking, solid brothers, they have a motivation, systematic, culturally, environment-wise, to stay in line with that man because they don't have the systems in place to back them up. So they feel an impetus to be in their best behavior. So that's what a lot of people don't realize in this country. It's not just relationship between you and the woman. There's family dynamics, there's systematic dynamics that are in place, that are in those places that hold people accountable. Here, you can forget about accountability.
Forget about it. No, I totally agree with you. I want to challenge Haley Adams. Haley Adams said that good men get good women. I think that's a myth. I think in theory that's true, Haley Adams. But I think it's a myth. I think there are many good men in America. Many men that are average in America will be great men abroad because the hypergamy is not carnal, it's kosher. You know, women abroad practice kosher hypergamy. I'm going to talk about that in the show, but women here practice carnal hypergamy. They can have a decent man here in America, but they'll still look their nose down on that decent man. When you travel abroad, our average guy can still get a good traditional woman. Correct me if I'm wrong. What the fuck? Correct me if I'm wrong. A man that travel abroad can still get a good traditional woman if he's a good, decent man. But I think good men here still have a hard time getting average women because those average women think they're better than those decent, good men. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. I think that, again, the idea of the average man, which is like in America, you didn't have kids too soon, you didn't go to jail, and you were making, you found your purpose, you found your lane, you're making, let's say, $40,000 to $50,000 a year. In America, that man is seen as pretty much below average. But again, he beat so many BS tests that were put in front of him in the system of white supremacy. So now if he comes overseas, that average man is going to be completely above average, because if you go down to South America, those women will see like, oh my God, this man is a hardworking man. This is the man that's not the stereotypical American man that I'm seeing on television. This man is above average. But in America, he's below average, because deep down, the majority, not all, the majority of our women want that type of man, whether it's for sexual gratification or for like, get that man and turn him into a husband. Whereas overseas, the average man that is working in IT or doing any type of job if he can make money and you take that skill overseas, it's transferable. And he is an above average man in that environment. Plus, he's a little bit more wooey. He's a little bit more simpish, and he's a little bit more moldable than the man of that woman's culture. So he's definitely above average in that woman's eyes.
That's true. That's true. I agree with you guys 100%. Starting with Reese from Philly, and we're going to sign off in a minute. I have to get on the road. But where do we go from here? And what did you get from the discussion? But before you answer that, actually, I'm going to finesse it. In less than 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you this, Reese from Philly. Why are black women so appealing to you? What do you love in black women? And I'll tell you what I love before you answer your question. I love the curvaceousness of the hips of a woman of African descent. I love the black cotton that's on top of her head. And I love her shape, you know. I like a little sassy sauce on my woman, not too much, because I might turn into a lion, but I like a little bit of sassy sauce, just a little hint of sassy sauce. But when it comes down to you, what do you like in black women? What is something about women of African descent that just drive you crazy? And where do we go from here?
First off, I do agree with everything you just said, right? But there are little things that I like about black women that some other brothers might find odd. Like, they move different in everything they do. They hold a cigarette different. They walk different. You know, they put sentences together differently. And they're just so much different. They don't hold the commonalities that all the other women of all the other races have. You know what I'm saying? They're unique in their own right. And I'm not even talking about the ratchetness and all of that. I can handle 10% of that. Some of that is sexy even sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like when it's joke English, and you know what I mean? Something that you could tap her on the ass when she walked by after she said it, not slide her in the jaw. You know what I mean? So, and look, I really got to go over that, man. The lips, the nose, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's the small little innuendos that separate them from everyone else. There's not enough time in this live stream for me to go through all that. But I think you brothers know what I'm talking about.
We will finish the conversation, guys. We'll probably do a part 2 because I got to get to work. But to the Ingram experience, the brother is 6'6". He's on the rise. He's making bank. What do you like in women of Ados descent or women from the African diaspora? And where do we go from here?
I think we have some of the best women.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say Millennium Mark. I'm sorry, Ingram. Did I get
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Millennium Mark. Go ahead, Millennium Mark. Go ahead, brother. As a man of 6'6", what do you like in Ados women or women from the African diaspora? And where do we go from here? Millennium Mark TV.
You know, I got to tell you, I like the tenacity of our women. I really do. And, you know, to touch on some of the things that you said as well, as far as this, you know, their shape, you know, the natural beauty that comes, you know, with our women, with the fact that they don't really have to put on so much extra to really highlight their beauty. You know, our sisters, man, like I said, I mean, we got some beautiful women.
Okay. And where do we go from here, Millennium Mark?
As far as
getting the outcomes that we want, where do we go from here?
Well, the women are gonna have to teach each other. You know, they're gonna have to teach each other. You know, as far as like, you know, the things that, you know, you got these platforms such as this one where you got men, you know, voicing what we want, and the fact that we're sitting here saying, you know, we love our women, we want our women, we just want them to do better. So where we go from here is maybe they need to take heed to some of the things that we're saying and just listen and be willing to make the change, because your men want you.
Mm-hmm. We do want them. I think a lot of these men here want them, but you know, they sing that song by Boys and Men called "At the End of the Road." Ingram, what do you like about women of Ados descent and also women from the African diaspora, and where do we go from here?
I think our women are some of the most beautiful women on the planet. I like the style. I like that black cotton that you talk about with their hair. Our women in their natural state are the most beautiful women. Style, class, fashion, everything. And I think, like the brother said, even overseas, when we see a black woman overseas, even in all these other countries that the brothers go to, they will always choose that black woman because they believe they're getting a version of what they want without the negative programming, drama, feminism, radicalism, and attitude. So what I think we go from here is I'm a relationship capitalist type person. I'm just saying that there, like you said before in one of your shows, there's black women all over the world. And there's black women that come with culture, family dynamics that fit into our program. The biggest, what has not been injected enough into our culture here in America is capitalism and the aspect of replacement. I'm at a point of replacement. My thing is, I'm not trying to convince, you're not going to convince women of anything in this culture because they're too much reinforced by this gynocentric culture, the social programming, the internet, social media. The only thing that's going to change that's going, people, like I did a video one time, we talk about women don't change for men, they change for themselves. Women are not going to change in this country for us. Mm-hmm. And my thing with that is, great, stay the way you are. I'll just go get a sister from somewhere else.
Right.
Africa, South America, one of these places that is not only just her, but she's reinforced by family and culture. So I'm getting not her, I'm getting the culture and the family structure of discipline that comes along with that woman. And that's what a lot of brothers mess up. You look at the woman in front of you, that's just 20% of the package. The other 80% is what's behind her. So for me, I think we're at a point where you're not going to change these women. You better go get yourself a brand new version somewhere else. I don't care if you have to go all out the way in the village somewhere. Get yourself a better quality. And that's the only thing they're going to understand. They're not going to change.
Right.
Just got to replace.
Right. No doubt. Real quick, the Millennium Mark TV in less than 30 seconds. Why do you need a submissive woman? And is being submissive a bad thing? Less than 30 seconds. Why does Millennium Mark TV need a submissive woman? And is being submissive a bad thing? Go ahead.
Okay, so is being submissive a bad thing? Absolutely not. And the reason, I personally need a submissive woman is, a submissive woman is going to help, we, as men, we do want a woman that's going to be by our side, that we can guide and we can steer. And we're going to, we're walking on the same path, but she understands that, she's 2 steps behind me. And when I say 2 steps behind me, I mean, when trouble faces us as a unit, I'm the first line of defense. I don't want a woman that's trying to walk right beside me. So I look at that as submission, the fact that you understand that I'm the man and that, when we face adversity together, I'm the first one who's going to, head that on.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really why I personally need a submissive woman. I don't need a woman who wants to be a partner. I don't need a woman who wants to, be in charge. I don't need a
like
woman.
that.
I don't need a woman like, some guys get excited about women buying them stuff. I don't want a woman to buy me stuff. I look at that as a way of control. Okay, I just need a woman to understand, her role, because I'm not trying to step into her role, and I need her to understand, what my role is, because I'm going to fulfill my role, and that's how I view submission.
No doubt that you get a round of applause. Give Millennium Mark TV a round of applause for that. That was an excellent response. Reese from Philly. Why does Reese from Philly need a submissive woman, and is submission a bad thing in less than 30 seconds? Go ahead, brother.
I need a submissive woman because I don't want my fire to be lit. I fully understand what's going on in my head. I'm me. You see what I'm saying? And I've overreacted to a situation before many years ago that caused me some problems. So I don't want to be reeled in to a situation that could turn toxic or turn worse, or possibly like take my freedom away. See what I'm saying? I'm not malicious. I don't go around, I'm kind of a simp kind of. You know what I mean? I'll treat women like jewelry, but I'm one of the men that really, really, really don't like combativeness. And that's why I've been single most of my life. So it is essential that I must have a submissive woman, not a slave, just someone who's not combative. Like she could even bring her ideas to the table and I can jump on to that. I don't have to be running the show. There are women out here that have divine ideas that a man could jump onto, and y'all can build together on that. So it's a two-way street. You see what I'm saying? So
let me say
woman
this.
with balance.
Let me say this, Reese from Philly. I didn't want to cut across you. The truth is this: submission is a duality. Men and women submit, but we submit in different ways. She's supposed to submit to his authority, provision, and protection, and he will submit to her by giving her covering and love and guidance. It's really a duality. It's a symbiotic relationship, almost like a lampreyfish and a shark, or a crocodile and that little bird that gets in his teeth. The crocodile promises not to eat the bird, so therefore the bird submits to get in the crocodile mouth. And the little bird submits by saying, I'm going to get these parasites out of your teeth. I said before in the past, if she protect his 6, which is submission, he'll protect her 6. The word submission just means to agree. That's all it means. In theology, they all submit to one another in what's called the triarch or the Godhead. So when people say, I can't submit, with submission is part of the mission because it's part of interdependence. But here's the caveat. Many can't submit because they want to be part of the power differential. But you are the power differential, and it's her job to submit to your mission. It's your mission, and she's supposed to submit to your mission. And I know some of these men don't know how to lead, but I'm talking about competent men that know how to lead. Submission really is beneficial to the man and the woman, but he is the authority broker in the relationship because he's going to be the final say, and he's going to be the final one to more or less make the decision. The gospel talks about the Father, Christ, man, woman, and children. It's a hierarchy. And once you follow that supreme line, then everything else takes care of itself. What the fuck, in less than 30 seconds, what does submission mean? Why should a woman submit? And why? Okay, well, you know what I said. Answer the question. My brain is spinning, man.
I got you. I need a woman to submit because I've already played this game the way that I need to play it. I'm already in a position where I've already won. I'm retired at 40, and I don't need anyone else coming in and kind of try to jack up what I've already put together. Especially knowing how to submit in an argument, or knowing how to submit when it's not so much that I need submission, like you need to be sitting there like some body in the corner, but to know that your power of your tongue can truly ruin me. I need you to be submissive in that and not use that power. And don't speak like the women of my past. Don't speak like the women that I was raised with. Understand that you have power in the way that you speak, but still use your tone and be soothing with it. That's submission to me. And that's why it's truly important to find a woman who understands that kind of nature.
Ingram, I'm about to throw you the ball, man. I want you to take it home with a slam dunk. Why is submission important to you? I'm about to throw you the ball. I'm going to alley-oop it, I want you to dunk on Allen Iverson. But I want you to add clarity to the question, and we're going to end this stream. Why is submission so important to you? And why do you need a submissive woman? Real quick.
The fact of the matter is this: if you're that type of man, you deserve submission from a woman. The reality of it is that you can't drive a car with 2 steering wheels. You're going to wreck. And our job as men, being the logical one in the relationship, we're designed to lead. We're designed to lead and have cooperation. We're designed for women to follow us. If we're those men, you cannot have a peaceful home. And we've seen that chaos right now, even in the country as we speak. Most homes that where women are in charge, we already know the situation financially. We already know the situation in terms of how those households are run, the lack of discipline, especially financially. So we're supposed to be logical, not emotional. I know a lot of men have been raised by these single moms and whatever. The rational, logical person, the male, the man, is supposed to set the direction of the household. You can't have 2 leaders. You can't have 2 steering wheels in the car. And even in every situation that is successful, there is a chain of command. There's the chief, there's the XO, and everybody complements each other. And that's how you run a good organization, a good family situation. Somebody has to be in charge.
Right. I want to add to family values. What I mean by that family value, you say I disagree, a man does not submit to his woman. I'm not talking about submission family values as it relates to authority. You're correct. In the hierarchy, you're right, man submits to God. But what I'm saying is that when it comes down to submitting ideas, if you look at the synonym for submission, it just means to agree. So there's a level of agreement as it relates to that man covering his woman. He says, I submit to cover you as long as you respect my mission. Not as it relates to authority. Submission is normally based on authority, and authority is based on hierarchy and order. So I think I know where you're coming from, but much love and blessings to you, family value. So once again, guys, we're going to end this stream. This has been another very powerful stream. Shout out to Reese from Philly. Shout out to What the Funk. Shout out to Millennium Mark TV. I got to have you on again, brother. And always the Ingram experience with his viciously and vigorously pontifications. So anyway, guys, we're going to end the stream,
We
man.
pull up the names again. I'm
man.
going to sub to the gentleman's channel real quick.
Who's that?
What's the gentleman's channel, your channel name, sir, at the bottom?
Oh, that's Millennium Mark.
Me.
TV.
Yeah, Millennium Mark TV.
Right. You got to clean the business, right, brother?
Okay, I'm going to check it out right now. So.
Yeah, Millennium Mark, good brother, man. He's a good brother. Well, listen, guys, we're going to end the stream. It's been a good one, guys. If you have not donated, please donate to the channel. Donate to Cash App, $7 Smalls. If you like what we're doing, because these movements are part of what's called group therapy, which is in a synthetic barbershop. Whereas men, we don't agree on all things or ideologies, but we do come together as allies of a common cause. So this has been another good show, guys. We're about to sign off, and I will see you guys judiciously. So thanks again, guys, and I appreciate everything you guys have done. And we're about to sign off. I told you guys once again that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male, and understanding female psychology is paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well.
Faith is before you. Choose wisely.